honestly, it's a controversial pick, but I thought it would be a good way for me to start talking on a podcast.
Is that a good way to start talking on a podcast? Jamie, pull that up.
So it looks like white guys aren't allowed to start podcasts anymore. The liberals don't want us to.
Oh my God,
the
is
liberals.
that true?
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
And then you pull up a
please.
meme, and it's like a Wojak meme about it.
Of course.
See?
Of course. Okay.
I mean,
Ghouls.
Wojaks are the most citable sources that I'm aware of.
Honestly, they're like in
They're
the
peer
Library
reviewed.
of
Honestly,
Congress or something.
There's not much more peer-reviewed than a meme.
When you think
Your
about
peers
it,
review that
If we
shit
just put that
constantly.
as text under a picture of the Chad Wojak, that'll be
Yeah.
perfect.
True.
yeah. You are so right. I did have a Tumblr meme of mine reach 10K recently, but I had muted it because
Damn.
the notifications were really annoying me.
Seems like it would.
It's my God of War meme that I drew over the like Spider-Man and Pinkie Pie. Like, do you see this shit, Pinkie Pie? Except it's him holding up Mimir, and it's do you see this shit, Mimir? So I've reached 10K on that, which it makes it my second biggest Tumblr meme ever.
Nice.
Iconic, truly.
Yeah.
Wait, what's the biggest?
I'll send it in the server.
Okay.
Because it you have to see it. I can't explain it.
Fair enough.
Let's take a moment for posterity.
A moment of silence for posterity.
A moment of
A
silence.
moment of silence. Everybody, let's quiet down. Let's quiet down for posterity real quick. Let's quiet. Everybody, just a moment of silence. Just a moment of silence for posterity. Okay, I
so
think that's
the thing
enough.
about this meme
Yeah.
is that I said 10K was my second biggest meme, and that is true. What is also true is that my biggest meme has about 17 times the notes of my second biggest meme. So,
17.
yeah, 171,000 notes.
That's quite a few
Damn.
notes.
It's a classic. It's
I
honestly,
can see
it's
why
the
this hit it big. I can tell.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
free real estate.
It's free real estate.
Oh, that is
free real
very
estate.
good.
What
though.
could possibly
Yeah.
be more appealing than that? I mean, really.
It's so Tumblr pilled. Honestly, it's like the most
Absolutely.
Tumblr pilled thing
Oh my
Nina's
God,
ever done.
have you posted
I
this
made
to
that
Tumblr?
post-
Because you should. They'll love it over there.
I made that post at 3 a.m. during finals in 2016.
That is the only
Incredible.
thing more Tumblr than the post itself.
Yeah, I love that.
So here's something that's also, it's not Tumblr,
Oh,
but it is kind of Tumblr, in a way. The ghouls I have to gab.
right.
I would like to start out, I began, before the podcast, I was talking about how I have 3 ghouls to gab, and they have a very powerful through line. And Noah made a joke about how that through line would lead us directly into Conan the Barbarian, which we also watched. And that joke is partially true, but for a really convoluted reason.
Okay.
So recently, you
Wait a
may be
minute.
aware.
I need to make a joke real quick as soon as Nina's done, but I don't remember the name of the movie. The Maybe I Do Like Hunky Boys movie. What is that?
Oh, Psycho Gorman.
Thank you. Okay,
Psycho
continue,
Gorman.
Nina.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, cut that
Should
shit
I
out.
cut that? I'll cut that.
Jamie, roll that back.
So recently, you guys may be aware, Emma and I were not here on the podcast, and that's because
Oh, really?
we were
Yeah.
hanging out in person.
I didn't notice.
Because Jeff and I were too busy watching the most toxic masculinity movies of all time.
And
Could've
as
been
you
worse.
should. And I am glad you guys had fun. Meanwhile, Emma and I were watching a completely different kind of masculinity movie. Emma and I watched 3 movies. We
Okay.
watched The Lost City, parentheses of D. I actually don't know if that's in the title. We watched 21 and 22 Jump Street. And what all of those movies have in common is
Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum.
Oh, okay.
Nina
Okay.
really be like, I don't care for hunky boys, Psycho Goer Man voice, or do I? See,
Okay.
that's the joke from earlier, but it's funnier if you cut it out. So make sure you cut it out.
Right. It's cut. It's done.
No, I did not get Channing Tatum until I watched these 3 movies. Because
Yeah?
previously I've seen Channing Tatum in She's the Man and Dear John. So
Yeah.
neither of those movies are really doing him any favors.
I've
Yeah.
heard Magic Mike is like shockingly good.
I have heard that too, but I've not seen it.
I have
Yeah.
seen Magic Mike.
Is it shockingly
Is it
good?
true that
It
it's
was
actually like
it was
heartfelt?
actually pretty good. Yeah, I enjoyed
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So we
All the
watched.
proof I need.
There we
So
go.
first review, Lost City of D, fine. Campy, cute. Daniel Radcliffe plays a great villain in it. It's a lot of fun. I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend it, but for just kind of having on in the background while we were all chilling out that first night, definitely filled the void we needed it to fill and inspired us to watch 21 and 22 Jump Street, which I don't know why I thought I would not like those movies. I think it's just because I genuinely don't like comedies. I've watched a lot of comedies, and I like that, like things that are to me in the same vein, like The Hangover. I don't think The Hangover is funny.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought this would be like that, and then we get maybe half an hour into it, and I'm like, this is great. Why is this so good? So I looked it up. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller of Lego Movie and Spider-Verse fame made these movies.
Yeah.
And it shows.
They're so good.
They're so good. 21 was good. 22 was better. And so here's the through line. I'll get it out of the way to Conan the Barbarian.
Hunky
The through
boys.
line is in 22 Jump Street, Wyatt Russell and Channing Tatum have this incredibly intense bromance. And the whole time I'm like, they have such good chemistry, and it pisses me off that this is not something they're going to do, because it was made in 2015 for one thing, as well as it is kind of just a punchline throughout the whole movie, despite the fact that it's like cute.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've been watching a lot of 80s movies, and I really like 80s fantasy. What if I wrote an 80s romance fantasy thing where two big hunky boys fall in love? And then I watched Conan the Barbarian for research, and that's the whole through line there.
My through line was Hunky Boys. And
It
that
is
was
hunky boys.
Yeah.
Conan the Barbarian is a hunky boy. That movie was better than I expected it to be. It did not treat women well,
Nope.
but
Was it with
There was-
noted conservative Kevin Sorbo?
no, that's Hercules. Conan the Barbarian is Arnold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's part of our Arnold resurgence.
Yeah,
we
we
also
watched a
watched
lot of
T2,
Arnold.
and it was very good.
T2 was
Fuck
also very
yeah.
good. I have a lot of love for these movies we've been watching. But yeah, that's a whole. I have now regaled you. You've been regaled.
Wow.
Oh
Anyone
gosh,
else?
I feel so regaled.
I'm feeling regaled as hell right now.
Didn't you say? Wait, didn't you say you had two other movies?
Yeah, but Noah and I watched them together, so that's a dual. It's a dual ghoul.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
I'm going to come in with my much better ghoul that will then be followed by a so much worse ghoul.
Yes.
Wait.
Worse school, you say?
Oh, yes. We saw the new Godzilla, Godzilla -1.
Yo,
I saw
hell
it.
yeah.
I saw it last night. It was finally
heard
showing at a
good
theater
things.
near me. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Firstly, didn't think you were going to get a chance. Very glad you did.
Yeah, me too.
So good.
It was very
It's just
good.
really, really good.
Finishing up, Piper was like, I think that was my favorite movie of the year.
Ooh,
That's
And,
so
It's
fair.
really strong.
and I was like, even more than Barbie. And they were like, oh, Barbie did come out this year. They're like,
Yeah, see, that's the
I
problem.
liked this movie a lot.
I think Barbie, Spider-Verse, and this movie, and Godzilla rather, are very strong top 3 for me this year.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna have to remember what came out this year before I say anything, so I'm not.
That's so fair.
Godzilla -1 is really good. Obviously Jeff hasn't seen it, so I'm just gonna hit some highlights that are just like fun things. Godzilla in the water moves like a fish, not like literally, but he's like very mobile in the water.
Right.
Godzilla on land
Being a
looks
sea
like a
creature.
wind-up toy of a man in a suit, dead stares, like marching
The
forward.
classic
Yeah.
Godzilla.
Well, no, even stiffer than classic Godzilla. It's fantastic.
He's so good.
I was
He's such a
telling
good
Piper,
boy.
I was like, I'm just used to like American Godzilla that's like hunched and like kind of like almost designed after a T-Rex ish.
Yeah, but
And
Japanese Godzilla
This
is
one
built
is
like
like
Mewtwo.
this one's like perfect posture Godzilla.
Godzilla who cares enough to get to work on time.
yeah, totally.
And he is motoring. He is making his
Up
way
until he hits the
downtown.
ground, and then he's not motoring quite as fast, but he's going.
He's trying. Oh, I loved him.
Really, really good. It's very funny because a lot of people who talk about how they're surprised at the deep messaging. The general vibe of everyone is, oh, you've never seen a Japanese Godzilla movie before, have you?
Right.
Or,
Yeah.
oh, you thought Shin Godzilla was like a fluke, that they're not usually serious.
yeah.
But
Because, well, that's the thing is, like, from what I understand, as someone who has not seen a lot of Godzilla movies, but has
Right.
watched some general kaiju movies, mostly Mothra. From what I understand, most of these kaiju movies start out with one that has an actual message, and then as they get popular, it becomes like a Transformers like fucking thing where we're just mashing them against each other to have them fight.
Yeah.
And a lot of the modern resurgences
Are much more
are trying to
classic.
bring it back to actually having some kind of messaging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Super good. Not going to say anything about the themings. I want Jeff to be able to experience those live
Yeah.
during their first watching, if possible, because
I was
very, very worth it.
I was very emotional at the end.
Yes.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
cried a
I was telling a friend of mine, I was probably in some level of tears through the last 20 or 30 minutes of the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, really emotional ending.
It's good. It's so good. I want everything that I would have wanted them to do as the type of storyteller that I am, they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, that very same day, about 6 hours after finishing Godzilla -1,
You watched the Trolls movie.
and about 30 minutes after finishing watching Krull,
Woo, Krull!
which was fine.
Krull is fine.
Not for me.
Need applause for Krull.
Hey,
My 2-second review of Krull. Damn, y'all loved Star Wars but didn't want to go into space yourself, huh? Anyway,
yeah, that's so fair. Y'all loved Star Wars, but didn't get what made it good.
Nina
Stars.
was lightly incapacitated,
Mhm.
and I was just like, hey. Yeah.
I was so good. I was
Right,
fine.
sure. Totally normal.
So I was just like,
Perfectly
Nina,
fine.
you don't care what we watch. What if we watched a Hellraiser? But I don't want to watch
Sure.
Hellraiser 4. Hellraiser 4, not that great. So I said, Nina, what if we watch Hellraiser Inferno by Scott
okay.
Derrickson?
To quote the back,
Oh shit,
the,
Scott
the-
Derrickson. Oh no.
to quote the back of the Dutch version of this DVD, Pinhead is back and he's pricklier than ever.
Oh, so true. Yes.
How prickly was he? Was it
About-
more than ever? Or
No.
Nope.
the normal amount?
I think you can hold your breath longer than he is in this movie.
Probably.
I think anyone could hold their breath longer than you see him on screen.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Anyone.
Yeah,
Wow.
anyone could, except maybe a baby. Okay,
Sure,
fine.
sure. I'm gonna start canvassing for toddlers with the smallest lung capacity so that I can test
The
this,
enlightened
but-
debater has entered the chat and said, actually, a baby cannot hold their breath longer than a
Hellraiser
minute.
Inferno.
Hellraiser Inferno sucks.
It sucks
Ass.
so
Yeah?
much.
So I
Is
back
it better
in the day,
than number 4 though? Because if
We
that's
didn't
the
watch
reason that
4,
you
so
watch-
I don't
Um,
know.
Here's the thing: number 4 is longer,
Oh, okay. So
and that's
therefore
another
worse.
reason I didn't feel like watching it. Number
Sure,
4 has
sure.
the bones of a better story,
Oh,
and is
Right.
probably also better. You just
Inferno-
also have to know some stuff. But Inferno,
sure.
back in the day when I visited Nina for the first time, we went to the Museum of Pop Culture. This is a
Oh,
story I've
right.
definitely told on the podcast before,
Yeah.
specifically. They
Oh, I've told
had
it too.
a Hellraiser puzzle box on
Yeah.
display, and I'm like, "Holy shit, Nina! It's the Hellraiser box!"
Actually, what happened
And
was I
then-
went over to the Hellraiser box and I was like, hey, Noah, look at this.
And
hey,
I
Noah,
come over
here.
full of excitement, and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's
a
the
thing
puzzle
from the
box!"
movie
And then
that
I
you
went,
like.
"Oh, it's from Inferno. That's disappointing."
Yeah, I was devastated. I was like, I have failed as a girlfriend. This is the end of our relationship.
It was very funny, in my opinion, hilarious. But I then saw Scott Derrickson was the one who directed Inferno, and I'm
Right.
like, "Oh, I like his movies. Maybe Inferno isn't as bad as I remember." And I had also, in my mind, switched Inferno and one of the other shitty sequels.
Oh no. So is it just as
Um,
bad as you thought, or?
Oh boy,
It's pretty bad.
it's pretty bad.
So this is the movie I was talking about before the podcast that I said retroactively made me dislike other movies.
Yeah.
This movie made me decide that I don't think Scott Derrickson is a very good director.
yeah,
Fun.
because all the things you don't like in this movie, you realize are present in all the other things he's done. Like, I have huge beef with VHS, what was it, 99?
85.
85.
That was the
VHS
problem.
85. This bitch came in and did a full HD crisp, clean camera shot on widescreen short.
He was the only one
And
in
he was the-
85 who did that. Everyone else got like an old school aspect ratio.
Yeah.
And then
it
Scott
pissed me
Derrickson's
off.
like, fuck you, I guess.
Like when he spoilers for his segment of 85. There's a couple of dream sequence moments that you see, and they're like on a higher frame rate, and it's clearly digital and it's very well lit, and Guar is there. You know, it's kind of neat, right?
Oh yeah,
And that
Guar
would
is
make
there, huh?
sense. Yeah, they are. Weird, right?
That is weird.
But he made the black
But-
phone. We loved the black
And
phone.
that's
He
the
did the
I
black
like
phone,
the
and
black
he
phone.
did Sinister as well, and we liked that.
and I like
but-
Sinister, but the stuff that I don't like about those movies are things, and the stuff I don't like about 85 are things that he does so much in Inferno that it made me realize, oh, the things I don't like about these good movies are Scott originals.
It's just
Yeah.
And
his
everything
involvement.
else seems to be like other people's effort making the movie better in
So-
in a way.
Inferno immediately is a better movie if you take Hellraiser out of it. Immediately is
sure.
better. Like, not even any question. Because I believe Inferno is the first of the script purchase slide in Pinhead Hellraiser movies.
It
Right.
definitely would not surprise me
And-
if it was.
I was like, well, maybe my issues with this movie aren't Scott's fault. Maybe he didn't write it. No, this is a Scott script.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's listed as the primary writer.
Yikes.
So it's his script that got picked up and then had Pinhead shoved into it. And he talks a lot about how he likes his interpretation of Pinhead and he likes what he ended up doing with everything. But this is also the beginning, and not the beginning. This is the apex example of the Cenobites from Hellraiser are now literally demons from hell sent out to punish Catholic sinners type of thing. They're not the we're so horny we're gonna cut our own face off guys anymore. No, now they're Satan says you fucked up there.
Yeah,
cop.
this is literally it is like Hellraiser does 7.
Yeah,
Oh.
that actually.
Oh man.
Flip
It's
See,
side.
now, if
really
they would have held on to this, if
disappointing.
they would have sat on this script for 15 years, it could have been a great sequel to The Pope's Exorcist.
Oh my god.
I laugh as if I know what that means. I can't wait to watch The Pope's
You
Exorcist.
gotta watch
It's
that
high on
shit.
my list. I
love-
just haven't done it
I
yet.
love Russell Crowe in that. Anyways, though, you were still talking.
But the one good thing about this movie is it slots very comfortably right next to 1408, additional reference to the number 13,
Oh.
as a another entry into the list of movies that aren't set in Silent Hill but are also definitely a Silent Hill movie.
That is true. Yeah.
That's
It's
fun.
very Silent Hill-ish.
Yeah, it's and it
But-
has the same kind of camp to it, but no, bad movie, didn't like it.
Yeah,
I think that's it for our ghouls.
that's all my ghouls.
Great.
Okay.
I have 13 movies to gab.
God.
Okay,
No,
great.
I'm kidding, I'm
Additional
kidding.
reference.
The first one, 13 Ghosts.
I had Godzilla, but we already talked about that. So while I was in DC, I watched No One Will Save You, which is a movie about this girl who lives in this small town and she's kind of off by herself in the woods, and then aliens come and visit her and start like hunting her kind of, but the aliens are also like they look like aliens, but they're also kind of cute and silly.
Oh, sure.
And it was a strange movie, but I enjoyed it for how the aliens are portrayed. And it was interesting. I don't know that I would recommend it.
Okay.
Maybe if you're just
think I've
looking
heard
for
good
something
things
chill
about
to
it.
watch, but it's a
Yeah, I've
it's
heard
a weird one.
Things about it, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't love the main thing that I've heard from everybody is not really liking the ending, and I agree. But the rest
That's
of
always
it
a
was
hard
pretty
one.
good. The next movie was Totally Killer, which is an Amazon movie where a girl is time traveling back to when her parents were teenagers to try to find and save everybody from this serial killer that was active back then. It's like a horror comedy sort of situation, but it's a fun time. I
That's
enjoyed
the one
it.
with Kiernan Shipka, right?
Yeah. Definitely had fun and I liked it. And then lastly, and this is not technically a horror movie, but it's pretty much a horror movie if you think about it. Priscilla, the biopic about Elvis's wife
Yeah.
Oh.
and how
Yeah.
he groomed her.
How was that? I
And-
really did want to watch that.
Oh God, was it uncomfortable?
Yeah?
Because
Yeah?
just
Yep.
like watching how she was groomed, and like
Right.
back then, it was more normalized.
It was
I
considered
guess.
to be fairly normal at the time, yeah.
But
Mhm.
like watching it from today's eyes, and it's directed and told in a way where it's like partially romanticized and partially like, oh, this is uncomfortable and weird. And then over time,
Ah.
it's just like extremely toxic and gross. And it was good. It was a very well made movie. The actress that plays Priscilla did a fantastic job. But gosh, was it like painful at times to sit through, but very, very good. I think it's like up for some awards, I'm pretty sure. But yeah.
I wouldn't be
I
surprised.
believe it. Yeah.
Mhm,
Well,
mhm.
I'll put that one on my list right after Black Christmas 2019, which I pretty much only want to watch to see if they make Carrie always do an American accent or not.
I've heard it's really terrible.
I've heard it's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard it's really bad.
I've heard it's not as bad as the 2006 remake.
I haven't watched either of the remakes because I've never heard a good thing about either of them, and I don't see any point.
That's kind of where I land too.
See,
For
I found a point,
funsies,
so I'm
Jeff.
doing
For
it.
funsies.
Oh, of
So
course, right.
true, for
I mean, I
fun.
didn't even know Carrie Elwes was in it, so like that changes a lot of things. Clearly,
It kind of does,
my
right?
threshold for whether a movie is worth watching shifts tremendously based on whether he's in it.
Yeah.
That's actually unironically very true for
Jeff,
me.
do you want to watch Saw 7? What the fuck? No.
What? No.
Carrie Ellis is in it.
Real shit.
I do want to shout out before we move to Jeff's official
Right, my official rules.
the
ghouls.
final ghouls?
I did listen to about half of the episode that you all recorded while Nina and I were
Hey.
away.
So you
And I
just
was-
about got through House of Undisclosed Number of Corpses?
Yeah. And
Nice.
I was so excited by Jeff's excitement and enthusiasm talking
Oh no,
about
you didn't watch it, did you?
No.
thank God.
Okay.
You can, but like, I really don't think you'll like it.
Yeah. The possession horror movie that I had talked about,
Oh, right, When Evil Lurks, yeah.
that one. Yeah. I was very happy to hear you talking about that on the podcast. And I was like,
fucking love
it's really good.
It's so good.
And I just wanted to, shout it out again
Yeah,
to hopefully get Noah to watch it.
We'll watch it.
maybe one day
I
we'll
promise.
Honestly, if Nina didn't want to watch it, I probably would have watched it while y'all were all at PAX. But I didn't want to watch it without Nina, and that's my excuse. But the real answer is also I never watch anything anyone recommends to me, no matter how much I know I'll love it.
Yeah.
This is
But
yeah.
Noah.
No,
I know.
I've been doing this
Oh,
for
can-
years.
Yeah.
Blackcoat's Daughter was like a really big threshold pass for us, where I finally watched one of the movies Jeff recommended.
Yeah, because I
So-
forced you to on the podcast.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not
That's
even
half the
gonna-
reason
no.
we do this.
Honestly, it is the whole reason that we do this. Let's be honest.
Just making
Yeah,
each
so
other
that I can
watch
make everyone
things.
watch Hellraiser 17,
Right.
and y'all
We can all
make me
make Noah
watch.
watch movies we've been recommending to him for years.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great system.
No
And then on the
flaws,
side, Nina
actually.
goes and watches 21 Jump Street without me, a movie I very much enjoyed.
I didn't know.
I own it. It's actually on our DVD
You
shelf.
own a lot of movies. Do you want?
You
I will pull a Griffin McElroy and put you on blast
Oh my god.
for some of the movies you have on that shelf. If
No,
you're
Fucking
not
do it,
careful.
bitch. You
Okay,
can't,
I'm
you
gonna
can't
leave.
scare me.
I'm gonna leave after for a second, and you guys can start the episode after Jeff does their ghouls. And I'm gonna go find some of the worst ones I can find that Noah has on his shelf.
Perfect. I love
am a
this as
little
Now
a
hold
break.
on though. I don't want you to be gone while I'm discussing my ghouls.
No, I said after you're done with the ghouls.
Okay.
After you're done with the ghouls,
All right,
I'll go.
so
Yeah, host of the episode just gonna walk away.
Yeah, you guys can banter.
All right, so in terms of my ghouls, I've got two that are related to today's movie, but before that, actually, I'm going to talk about a different one that I had forgotten I watched. Because of something that Nina said about Wyatt Russell, I watched a movie what had a Kurt Russell in it, doing some relatively gay shit. Have you seen Tombstone?
No, I need to.
I've been hearing for years from so many people about what a great movie Tombstone is, and I finally sit down and watch it, and guess what? Nobody ever warned me about the fact that it's gay as shit. Every interaction that Kurt Russell has with another man, this whole goddamn movie is so fucking homoerotic, it's unbelievable.
I know what I'm watching tomorrow.
I swear to God, he doms a man right out of town. And
I'm watching
everyone
this
else
movie
just takes
tomorrow.
it in stride. They're just like, well, that's Wyatt Earp. That's just the way he is. It's insane. There's a scene. I can't believe they were allowed to show this. He puts his gun in another man's mouth.
Hey, yo!
Seriously,
You know,
I
a
was
gun
just like,
is a
can they
slang
show
term
this?
for it, don't you? Penis.
And then he makes the
I'm
guy
gonna-
make eye contact with him before he kills him. Like, I don't know what that is if it's not just gay as all shit. It's absurd. But in any case, I loved the movie. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it for all the same reasons that everybody highly recommends it. It's just real good.
It just happens to also be gay as shit.
It just happens
it's a
also
Western,
to be gay as
right?
shit. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Then
you're gonna like
there's no reason for me not to watch this movie.
it. None
True. I do
I
whatsoever.
do love westerns.
Yeah.
It's real good. Val Kilmer's real. Everybody is in this movie. This is another thing.
Some
It's one of those
Okay.
movies that just has absolutely everybody in it because it's got Kurt Russell, it's got Sam Elliott, it's got Val Kilmer, it's got Billy Bob Thornton, it's got Terry O'Quinn who played Locke on Lost. I don't even know
love Terry
half
O'Quinn.
these people. I don't even know where they were in the movie. I just saw their names in the credits and I was like, hey, what the fuck? How did I miss him?
Okay, so Noah and I are gonna watch that
You
tomorrow.
need to.
I
You
think.
absolutely need to.
Someday I'm gonna find a way to trick you all into watching High Plains Drifter for this podcast because I'll justify it.
Won't need to fool me.
You will need to
Emma's-
fool me.
I was gonna
We do
say
need to
Emma's
fool Emma.
immediate expression was "Nice try, Bucko."
Not only is
You
it an
shouldn't
older
have
movie,
told
it's
me.
also a Western.
Not
Oh
only is
no!
it, I think it's from the 60s.
Oh,
That's
God.
old,
Is it 60s Eastwood? Oh my god.
and I
73,
hate
my mistake.
westerns.
Do you really?
I
You're
do
valid
hate
for
I didn't
that.
know that
Westerns.
before, but I
as
had
a
assumed it,
Western lover.
actually.
As a Western lover, you are incredibly valid for that.
It's a very particular kind of storytelling. It's very slow paced, you know?
I like slow pace. I hate westerns.
You know?
That's super fair.
Jeff, do you have another
Have you
goal?
considered, though, Cowboy? I do have
So I don't
other
have
ghouls,
to
yes.
I
Okay,
can't
so-
sit here.
Specifically related ghouls to this movie. All right, so upon watching Black Christmas, today's movie, for the podcast purposes, I was reminded of the fact that it is directed by Bob Clark. Bob Clark being the same man who directed Immortal Christmas Classic, A Christmas Story.
I'm so mad that I found this out before we were recording because I literally interrupted a full conversation to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was
what the
really looking
fuck?
forward to telling you for the first time while we were recording because I wanted to have your reaction here, but too bad. Okay, so here's the thing though. That had me watching Black Christmas a little bit differently and being like, well, I feel like I don't really see very much Christmas Story in this movie. And then I looked at it and I was like, hey, wait a second. I see tons of Christmas Story in this. These movies are shot kind of the same. And then I said, you know what I should do is I should check out other movies that this man has directed and I should see if it remains consistent there as well. And much to my, I don't know, I was happy about it. He directed other horror movies before this as well. Though it was kind of after this point, his career veered off toward comedies and such.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to this, actually, when we covered Texas Chainsaw on a previous Christmas episode of this podcast, we were talking about how Texas Chainsaw and Black Christmas came out like a week apart from one another, the same October in 74.
Mhm.
2 months before this, in August of 1974, Bob Clark had another movie come out, and it was called Death Dream. Or it is known now as Death Dream. It was released under the title Dead of Night. It's kind of like when Romero put out The Crazies, and it was titled like Codename Trixie, but now it's always listed everywhere as The Crazies. That's what it became known as later on. Kind of like that. It was released as Dead of the Night, and then now it's called Death Dream. But then also before that, in 1972, he put out a movie with an even more alluring title, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. That's a fucking
Ooh.
title, right?
Mm-hmm.
It does not live up to it.
Damn.
Full disclosure,
unfortunate.
Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things is not a good movie. I don't think. The way that it's put together and presented is very like stage play-ish. It's very it's 1972, so it's very like 60s in a lot of the way that it's done. It obviously had no budget. The actors are very obviously all more prepared to be stage actors than they are to be screen actors. It's got a handful of genuine funny moments, but I wouldn't recommend it under any circumstances. It does have this one character, though, who is consistently entertaining because he thinks he's so goddamn cool. He talks like a Redditor trying to sound smart in an argument.
God, I love
Every
that.
line that he says, you can tell that he just let it cook a little bit too long, you know? He's trying so hard to sound smart and cool, and he just can't. And that was fun enough. But Death Dream, which came out 2 months prior to Black Christmas, once again, is about Vietnam. And it's about PTSD. And it's about how cops suck at their jobs, which, if you've watched Black Christmas, should be a familiar theme from Bob Clark's work.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And I thought it was really, I don't know, it's the oldest movie that I can think of that is addressing PTSD in the way that it is. The way that it addresses Vietnam is not super direct or especially pointed in the ways that you would hope a Vietnam movie might be, but it's just its focus wasn't the same as like the average George Romero Vietnam movie, you know? It's more about the way that soldiers were coming back fucked up in ways that like nobody was really prepared for. There's a very consistent beat running through the movie, or not a beat, but a thread rather, where the Vietnam vet character's dad is really frustrated with the particular way that his son is fucked up. And he's a World War II vet. So he's like, I mean, I went and went through a whole bunch of awful wartime shit as well. And I didn't act like this when I came back. But then also consistently through the entire movie, there's a handful of just little character things that you can watch him for. And you can tell he actually does have some stuff wrong with him. It's just manifesting in a different way that he thinks is more normal. And I thought that for that to be the way that it was addressed was like actually really neat. The movie's not great. It's not perfect. It is also, though, an adaptation of The Monkey's Paw.
You said it's The Dead of Night?
Dead of Night, but it's like listed under Death Dream, pretty much.
Well, I found it as Dead of Night, so I'm adding it to my watch later list.
I think that's
just
what
so
it
I don't
is
forget about
on
it.
IMDb, but the places that are actually streaming it listed under Death Dream, and then the title card says Dead of Night, so it's like it's kind of rolling the dice on which title is going to be the right one to use in a given situation. Seems like
Valid.
But yeah, I would not recommend it necessarily unless it's as a curiosity for the themes and execution of it. It's not like a go enjoy it, have a good time kind of movie. It's, you know, it's very much like it's doing what it's doing for the message that it's pushing, you know? Not like Black Christmas, which if you're watching it just for a horror movie, it's like, yeah, this is a damn good slasher. And if you're watching it thinking like this is 70s feminism, it's like, well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It basically, I have started to get an idea for what Bob Clark likes to put in movies, though. And I think what he likes doing is taking regular interactions that are like, you know, maybe a little uncomfortable and just really highlighting how uncomfortable they are. And then I think he likes making the audience sit in the same discomfort that the characters are sitting in.
He did a really good job of that with Black Christmas. I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, because like so much of what he does, and I'm going to talk about this throughout the discussion of Black Christmas, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But like, he's got the same soundtrack guy on all three of these movies that I watched, and the soundtrack is executed very similarly on all of them. And if you have seen these movies, then you know that means a lot of silences. And I think that's just a thing that he really likes doing, so that then when like the characters are sitting in an uncomfortable silence, you are too. You're not having a different experience that's like separate from the experience of the characters in the movie. No, you've been put in there. You're there with them and you sit there with them. I like that a lot. That's something that I feel like a lot of directors don't do so much, and not even necessarily as a time period thing, because there are directors now who utilize silences in similar ways, and there were other directors then, but it's never been a popular move, and I like it a lot when it's done right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't.
Final thoughts on Bob Clark as a director, just in general. If you look through his like IMDb listings, You know how, I know Noah is going to understand this, but you know how, like, sometimes if you listen to a band like ZZ Top, you can spot a very clear delineation between the songs that they wrote to get on the radio and make money and the songs that they were, like, just kind of having fun with. It seems like with Bob Clark, if you look at the movies that he has directed, because he did not just direct these horror movies, he then went into comedies and directed Porky's, which is a very influential comedy, very raunchy from what I gather. I don't know. I haven't ever felt a need to see it. But then he also directed both of the Baby Geniuses movies, which are generally regarded as some of the worst movies ever.
Yeah.
It seems like there are projects that he cares about and there are projects that he takes just for a paycheck, and he doesn't mind if it's obvious. And honestly, I kind of respect that because it's like, get paid.
I definitely respect that because at least you're not trying to pretend like the movie you're making for a paycheck is high art.
Right.
That's kind of how I feel about Thor Love and Thunder, because everyone acts like Thor Love and Thunder being bad means Taika has lost his edge.
Nah,
No.
They just do that sometimes.
It just means that he took a Marvel movie for a paycheck, and that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, a bunch of people were mad about Thor Ragnarok when it came out as well, but it was fun enough that it kind of ended up being liked anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then none of those character decisions were maintained, and so why would Taika put effort into the second one if the effort he put into the first one was spat on? That's all I have to say on that.
That's a good time to hit the theme music, I think.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go get.
Let's spit on this theme music.
So I didn't actually write this in my notes, so it's going to sound super made up. But at the beginning of Black Christmas, connected to the Christmas Story thing, I'm watching the beginning and I'm like, this just feels like such a classic Christmas movie. It feels a lot like a Christmas Story, if we're being completely honest. It just needs the guy talking over the top of it. Because I did say to Nina, this is like the beginning to a classic Christmas movie, but I'm outside looking through the window instead of inside with everyone who's like, oh my God, Martha, I'm so glad you're here. And it's really funny to know why that is.
Right? I think
Nina
Bob
brought
Clark...
in 7 movies.
Oh, God. All right.
I'm going to have to re-alphabetize these.
Okay.
Well, like,
I
it's
will
fucking
re-alphabetize
hard.
them. I didn't notice that was the Schwarzenegger one, so I'm not going to count it.
Oh, yeah, I don't have the remake,
Okay.
I don't think.
So, movies Noah owns that would make me think to myself, maybe he didn't like 21 Jump Street.
Sure.
The Incredible Hulk. Alien vs. Predator and Alien vs. Predator Requiem.
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 Cowboys and Aliens.
Which I paid $15
Which he paid
for.
$15
Cowboys
for.
and Aliens. Oh,
Nick
man.
Cage Ghost Rider.
Oh, hell yeah.
Paul Bettany Priest.
Oh, shit. I forgot about that one.
Transformers 2-disc special edition. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. I rest my case.
Multiple Transformers movies.
Firstly, here's the thing. If you're going to pull these out as reasons that I wouldn't like...
Reasons that I would look at a movie on your shelf and think maybe you bought it for some other reason than I liked it.
I think Horrible Bosses would have been a better pull.
I didn't notice Horrible Bosses, or I would have pulled
Horrible
that
Bosses
shit.
well enough, but it was way better when I saw it censored on TV than it was when I watched it on DVD later.
It seems like the kind of movie that would be way more funny if it was censored, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Casual Obsession, the horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies. I am this week's host, Nina, and I'm here with...
It's me, Noah, this week's host.
No.
Along with...
Me, Jeff. I'm this week's host, along with...
It's me, Emma, this week's host, along with...
Me, Nina, again. Hello.
Yay!
This episode, we will be talking about Black Christmas from 1974. A movie that I feel like we've been avoiding up until this point, to be honest. I think it comes up. I think it's come up every year around Christmas.
I think it's
I
come
don't
up
think-
every time, yeah.
I feel like I've mentioned it, and we've all just decided to do something else, typically.
Yeah. Even if we weren't doing it on purpose, we have been avoiding it.
I
It
remember
feels
making
like
you
everyone
were
watch
doing it on
Krampus.
purpose.
it's one of those things that, like, hold on, I need to be able to actually scroll. It's one of those things where it would come up and it's like that's the obvious one, and we
Right.
all knew we were going to have to do it eventually, but we didn't. And man, I honestly am glad we put it off as long as we did,
Worth the
because
wait.
I was just really in the headspace this week to enjoy this movie.
Cool.
Hold on a second. Noah, can you pull up your notes and also the breakdown of? Oh, there it is.
Open up this
Cool.
pit.
My bad. Anyway, Black Christmas, 1974, is widely regarded as one of, if not the first slashers ever. It follows basically just a bunch of sorority girls living in a sorority house getting some weird calls right before they're supposed to go home for Christmas, and then one of them disappears, and everyone else is freaking out. And we'll get into more in a minute. This movie's critical reception. Woof.
That's a terrible segue into my bit. Why would you say woof?
I don't know. It looks lower than I expected.
Because
That's why you're
you've
not
got
supposed to
that
read my
dog in you,
numbers.
Noah. That's why.
So true, so true.
I always read your critical reception.
I think this is actually really fair.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't know.
It feels a little low.
7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, 65 on Metacritic, 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
That all
That's
does
pretty
feel
high.
a touch low to me, but I
I
like
think this is going to be a
slashers,
really
so-
subjective one.
Here's
I
well,
don't,
well,
and here we are.
but here's the thing. It is an old movie, and it's an
Yeah.
old movie with a lot of fans,
True.
but not like
Well, and also
a
another
severe
thing,
number of fans.
Another thing is, spoilers for all I'm going to talk about for the entire rest of the episode. It's super, super giallo-pilled,
yes.
It is
and that
very
makes
giallo-pilled.
very particular in who's going to like it and who's not, I think.
But that's really what's really
And specifically
we'll
that
get
I love
into
it.
it.
Also,
but-
We'll get
I'm not
into
trying
it.
to get political here,
Oh,
okay?
right.
But I don't watch foreign film, and this
Oh,
is from Canada.
right,
So you
sure.
know how
Oh,
it
this is a Canadian film?
It was made
Yeah.
in Canada, yeah. Although the director is from like Louisiana, actually.
Oh,
A
good for
Christmas
him.
Story was also filmed in Canada, though.
Huh.
Really?
There was a significant period of time that a ton of American directors would go work in Canada all the time because it was kind of a tax haven. For
But
a
the
while.
Christmas Story house is in Ohio.
Claims to be
Ohio's not very far from Canada.
not super.
It's
far.
true. It's right across
Pretty
the
damn
lake
far
from me.
as far as film rights go.
Anyway,
True.
uh,
I thought
Noah,
I
did
read
we
it
get?
was in Canada.
No, I didn't finish my bit yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was about to ask. Noah, did we? I was gonna try.
Do
and
we have an
prod you
Ebert,
on.
do you
Did
say?
We have an Ebert? That's where
Absolutely
I was
not.
trying to go.
I was looking for an Ebert because this struck me as a film Ebert would cover, right? One of those things where either he would hold it up as a bastion of horror can be good sometime, or he'd hold it up and say, this movie's so goddamn disgusting, I can't believe it. Because Ebert really was kind of like that about horror movies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Had to start
Movies
somewhere.
that, to someone like me, are almost identical things. He would point at one and say, this is the best shit ever, and another one and say, this is vile and morally reprehensible.
Truly
in a
the
bad
Twitter
way.
Brandon of his time.
Truly the Twitter Brandon of his time. I think Twitter Brandon would be almost offended at being held to the same light as Ebert because I don't think he thinks he's that good. Also, Twitter Brandon's back. Not here, unfortunately, but he did reactivate his Twitter, so I can find his old takes again.
Okay.
Let's go.
He liked the 2019 remake way more
Oh.
than the 2006 remake.
Oh.
But he also feels that the remake undercut its own point. And the only reason I bring that up is because the remake's entire point is saying the quiet part of this movie, women are not taken seriously when they're having really bad times. And it says it really loud.
Which is hilarious because for it to be the quiet part in this movie, it is pretty damn loud.
It
actually.
is pretty
Yeah.
fucking loud. But I was talking to Noah about this, and we'll get into it later. Much like the Barbie movie, I feel like this movie it's very explicit about its men being bad, but it also cuts them a little bit of slack that I don't know that I necessarily would have expected to be cut.
That's Brandon's huge issue with the 2019 remake.
Ah.
There's a twist at the end that cuts a huge amount of slack for the guys.
Oh. Well, that's no good.
Yeah. Yeah. However, we're not talking about the remake.
We're talking about this.
And Twitter Brandon isn't here. God is not with us. Twitter Brandon and God, not the same person.
Good. Neither of them.
Thank you for clarifying.
Prescription ad voice. But I think it's time to drop some ratings in here. And since
I'd say.
Nina is probably not going to want to go first, and my number's right in front of me, I'm just going to go.
His
Okay.
number is
Okay, well, Nina's thinking that my number's not right in front of me because it currently says blank out of 10.
It does.
Because I forgot to write the 9 in, but the number's 9 out of 10.
Ah.
Somehow, I have never watched this movie before.
Oh,
I know a lot about it. I have seen a lot of people talk about it. I've listened to several podcasts about it.
Oh my
And for
God.
some reason, it fell through the cracks of movies that I've actually seen.
I could have sworn I
Oh.
have had conversations with you in detail about things that we liked about this movie. Oh my God.
Definitely not things that I liked. I know conceptually I liked a lot of things, but I had
Sure.
never seen it.
Wow.
So
okay.
Fake Fan Noah strikes again.
And you
However-
liked it so much.
So that means
I
I'm the
really
only one
liked
who
it.
had seen it before of all of
Yes.
us. Wow.
Yeah.
So, I think it was good. I really like, shout out to the team Bob had working on this.
Mm.
The cinematography is frankly wildly ahead of its time. A lot of these
Honestly.
shots are very there's a couple of shots where you'll be looking out a window and then it does a really quick zoom back and is immediately focused on a much closer foreground object, a body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really clean, or you're looking at a body and then it pulls the camera back again and you're looking at a different body. There's a lot of
The
really good
POV,
moments like
yeah.
that.
the first person POV shots are really fun. I was telling Noah
Yeah.
early on, it felt like I was watching the introductory shots to a VHS short parodying
Yeah.
the 70s.
Mhm.
Also, just really
Also-
solid POV shots for as early as
Yeah,
this is.
The
the
POV shots
the
are clean.
the film
shaky
language
cam.
is really clear. There were certain props that were focused on. There were some, I'll just say it out loud, there were some glass crystal Swarovski swans that were focused on, and I'm
Mhm.
like, those motherfuckers are going down.
Oh yeah.
And I was
yeah.
like, these guys are not staying standing through the rest of this scene, and I was right.
Yeah, but there's a lot. The writing is for the 70s wildly progressive. Not surprising from the guy who brought us Vietnam PTSD movie the
He was
month
very
before.
specific about wanting to approach real social issues for this movie. It wasn't
Mhm.
originally
Yeah. It
part of the
was-
script, and he put it in.
Oh, that's good.
That's surprising that it wasn't, because it works so well for.
Yeah, it's-
I think that it really sets the tone for what what slasher should be, and
Yes.
maybe retroactively for something like Suspiria, especially, which has a lot of the same setting.
Mm.
It kind of retroactively makes me wish that was there, you know.
Yeah.
Classic Dario L. Missing
So-
out on one element to make something great.
I'll give. Oh no, you made Jeff so
Aw.
sad.
Jeff, don't worry. He still has
It hurts 'cause
colored
it's
lights.
true.
Don't worry.
He does have
He
the
still has
colored
gel
lights.
filters.
Oh man.
I want to drop my rating really quick because I think that Jeff's is the one I'm really anticipating, and I want to put mine out
You
there.
already know what mine is. Come
I'm
on.
anticipating Emma's. I already know what Jeff's is.
Yeah.
Oh, I am anticipating Emma's because it's an old movie and I'm curious. My rating is
They make him
probably
a face.
they're both making faces.
But you know what my face means.
My rating for this movie is probably on the slasher scale a 10, on the regular scale an 8.
Hey, okay.
I really
Wow,
liked
that's high.
it. I really, really liked it. I think it does the things that I don't like about Giallos. It doesn't do any of them because it's mostly because it's an American movie.
yeah.
So a lot of the film language and a lot of the pacing and writing is done for American audiences, which I am one. So I know that's a big part of it. It's easier. The pacing is easier to understand. The comedic relief lands better for me.
Oh, yeah.
But the things I do like about Giallos are all also there. And then the ending was coming. And I turned to Noah and I was like, is it going to end here? And then because I'm so used to, I've been watching a lot of 80s movies, and this is going to come up a lot while we talk. I was like, I looked at Noah and I'm like, imagine. And then it did.
Yeah.
And I was so happy. I was thrilled out of my fucking gourd.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, 8 out of 10. I think the only thing keeping it from being a 9 or a 10 is kind of the pacing of the last act a little bit, but it's still mostly fine.
Sure. Emma, you want to go next, or should I?
I think you should go next.
Fair enough. Yeah, keep building the anticipation. No surprise to anybody. I'm giving this a 10. I mean, come on. I love the. You were talking about like shots, like zooming to like show you new information and stuff like that. It's not even necessarily just zooming. There's a lot of POV shots where it starts off in one location and just moves through the house. I always love that kind of thing. And the way that it does that while it's like listening in on conversations, and that's how you get all your exposition about the different characters' backgrounds and stuff like that. I love the number of just long shots that start off one way and then end while revealing something else. It's great. I love most things about it. And as a 1974 giallo-pilled slasher can go, it's doing about as good as I think it could. So
also, personally, I'm a huge fan of non-cop movies that feature cops pre 9/11.
Yeah.
Because obviously around this time we had Clint Eastwood churning out rookie cop and grizzled detective movie after one another, right?
Yeah, Eastwood was pretty firmly in his what's it, Dirty Harry era at this point, wasn't he? Yeah.
I think he was just kicking it off because this is still the 70s. He was still making cowboy movies.
Well, he was still making cowboy movies in the 80s as well, but
the first Death Wish came out this year too.
There we go.
But this movie treats the cops with pure contempt.
Absolutely.
And shows them to be absolutely incompetent people. I mean, Nash, our desk guy,
the
literally
guy who fucks up everything, every movement of the movie.
He fucks every single moment he fucks up.
Yeah.
He has no bedside manner, which is something that like to this day is a huge criticism of cops that I don't think enough people talk about is just the fact that they're not trained to handle crisis at all. They fuck up even shit that like they don't need to have guns to fuck up.
Yeah, right?
They just need their brain and their mouth and they fuck it up.
And on top of that, it's like, well, maybe if you didn't have perfect people skills, I would be able to forgive that if you were just even passably good at your job, but you're not that either. Like, there is no part of anything that he ever does correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of that combined with the, like you just mentioned, the ending, it hits that one point and you're like, oh man, is it just going to sit here like this? And then it fucking does. I love it.
And then the credits roll and I was like, I was like, it's going to be a good movie no matter where it ends. But I was like, if it ends here, I have nothing more I could possibly want from this movie.
Yeah. So we're down.
Take it away, Emma. Oh, wait. My prediction?
Wait. Hold on, Noah. Calm down over there. Hold on. Welcome back, everyone, to North America's favorite game show, Guess That Number! Where we force our friend Emma to watch super old movies and try to guess what they thought of them. On this episode, we forced Emma to watch 1974's Black Christmas. Let's go over to our contestants to see what they thought.
Force, like you didn't willingly sign up for
Noah.
this podcast.
I'm from Pennsylvania, and my guess is that Emma's gonna rate this movie a 5 out of 10.
Wow, that's a pretty good guess, Noah from Pennsylvania. Who else do we have?
Oh, I see. Okay. Hi, I'm Nina. I guess Emma's gonna rate it also a 5. I think a 5 is a really solid guess.
You can't guess the same number. You have to go at least 0.1 over or under.
5 and a penny.
All right, I'm gonna guess that Emma gave it a 6. I'm gonna be generous to Emma on this one.
Okay, incredible.
Measured applause.
And last up.
I'm Jeff. I'm also from Pennsylvania. Oh my God. I've watched this show so many times.
A lot of pen boys over here.
Pen boys.
God, this is hard because like
Cheeks hurt.
just because it's 1974, I'm expecting a low number. But on the other hand, you have surprised me in the past. Do I think that you would go as high as a 7 on this movie? No, but I've been wrong before. My guess is 4.
And a 4. That leaves us with Jeff from Pennsylvania with a 4 out of 10. Nina, also from Pennsylvania, with a 6 out of 10. And Noah from Pennsylvania with a 5 out of 10.
I kind of resent being lumped into from Pennsylvania.
Okay, fine, Nina from
You should have
Washington.
said
Calm
where you were
down.
from then.
Yeah.
Closest number wins, as always. And let's go over to our contestant, Emma. Emma, what
was your number?
Yeah, I rated it at a 7 out of 10.
What the fuck? Holy shit.
Oh,
God.
nice.
Whoa. Okay. Yo.
Wow, we have a 10. We have
Holy
10,
shit.
9, 8, 7.
We do.
Yeah, so
Wow.
The podcast of the people has spoken again.
for one,
God.
I think this movie's audio quality is good compared to a lot of older movies, and that's like a big thing about older movies that really grates on me. So if it has
I was
good
paying
audio
attention
quality, it has a chance
that,
for
yeah.
me.
I was paying attention to that because I know that's your sticking point. So at a couple different, especially like in some echoey like church scenes and shit, I was like, is this gonna bug Emma?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Secondly,
scenes where you can tell one mic was set up in the middle of a big ass room.
Yeah.
Secondly, a lot of the camera style or like camera angles and styles and the way they framed certain scenes and stuff, especially towards the beginning, I think like tricked my brain into being like, this is almost like a found footage movie.
Okay,
and so
yeah.
like the look of the movie didn't bother me.
Right. Like we were talking
and
about
then
before,
it's
the POV
just
shots.
Yeah, it's just a well done story. There are things that I'll jokingly and lovingly criticize. But overall, it was a fun time. It wasn't like anything that super stood out to me. But for like an older movie, this was done really well, especially for like potentially the first slasher. Great job.
Hell yeah.
Very similar to Alien. It just feels, it's like, because I watched a lot of the, like, let's do another old movie test here.
Right, there's pieces of it that just feel a little bit out of time, right?
Okay, so this came out the same year as Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh my god, which feels squarely like a 60s Bond movie still.
So,
Up until Timothy Dalton,
my
the
God.
James Bond movies never evolved in their styles of shooting, only in their techniques of shooting.
if
Yeah.
it weren't for Christopher Lee being in Man with the Golden Gun, I would hate that movie.
That is so,
That's
someone over here is forgetting about Chef J.W. Pepper, the most racist side character in the goddamn universe.
anyways.
He is among
so-
them for sure.
It's really nice to have seen all the Bond movies because it really helps me. Bond movies to me feel like the most base, even to this day with the Craig movies.
Sorry,
feel
Bond
like a
movies
really
are the
solid-
most based? Is that what you said?
No, they've
This just in, Nina thinks James Bond is incredibly based.
no. Anyway, I think that they're a really good base level for like what was a standard kind of cut and dry, especially like action movie for the time.
Right, yeah.
I know they aren't great, but
Well,
like
but you can
even
assume
through
it's
Craig.
passable, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Even with Craig's movies, I watch those movies and I'm like, oh, this is pretty much what action movies from the 2000s were like.
Oh yeah.
So, to put those movies up next to the old horror movies we watch, usually it's like, oh yeah, this is still pretty bad. Black Christmas and Alien feel miles ahead of the other movies I've watched
Oh,
from
yeah.
those years.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna be honest.
Absolutely.
Watching Black Christmas, there's a lot of comparisons to be made between it and Halloween, right? Of course.
Of course.
Because Halloween took a lot of inspiration from it. It came out 4 years later. This movie feels like it could have come out a few years after that first Halloween movie, though.
Yeah. I mean, comparing this to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which came out the same year. I
Same
think.
week.
Yeah,
Same week.
days
Holy
apart.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
I mean-
literally like 8 or 9 days apart from one another, but like, come on.
We
Yeah.
all know how I feel about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I know how you all feel about Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Right.
and they're very different feelings. But
Very true.
from my perspective, quality is like miles apart.
Yeah, I
yeah.
can
I
agree with
won't deny that.
I
The-
will say that especially the storytelling and pacing on this one are just a lot more modern and fast paced and clearly communicated.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, and the points that they're making are very modern. They're
Yes.
unfortunately timeless points.
yeah, that's the
Yes.
I
problem.
wish
is
they
that
Yeah.
were less timeless
It
than they
feels
were.
as
That
though
is a
it's
really
ahead of
good way of
itself
putting
just
it.
because we haven't gotten anywhere since then.
That's so
Oh, that's
unfortunate.
not, Jeff, that is so untrue.
Oh, you're right. We've taken a huge step backward.
No, we've taken a huge step away from pervy phone calls.
That's
Oh,
true.
you
We
know
do
what?
dick pics
You
now.
know what?
Yeah,
I
now
bet
it's dick
that's
pics.
Way down. Yeah. New Black Christmas remake where he just keeps sending them these increasingly weird dick pics instead of making phone calls. And then the big reveal
I
at
wonder
the
if
end
that-
is
is
they,
that
they track the
2019?
I guess we'll have
GPS
to watch
locator
2019.
on his phone, and they're like, the dick pics are coming from inside the house. And the whole time, of course,
And
the
with
cops
that-
are like, it's just dick pics. What's the problem?
It's not like he's doing
Nothing else
anything.
about the plot changes. It's just that it's just dick
It's
pics.
just the dick pics. Okay.
The dicks
On
have
that
an
note-
axe in the pictures. I'm scared.
Ah!
a penis sitting on top of a Bowie knife, and it's like, why did you do that? That's so dangerous. Also, clearly a threat.
Okay, so content warnings for this movie.
All I wrote down is violence against women.
That
but-
covers a lot of things, but there are kind of nuances to it.
It's more than
there
that,
are some
but it is
specifics
just
to
that.
call out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Language, like sexist and sexual language.
Oh
Very,
yeah.
very
Are a
So
big one.
to
And
clarify,
this is from the
when I
first
say
5
that's all
minutes
I
of the
wrote
movie as
down,
well.
I forgot to get back to
Yeah,
it.
Noah clearly started a list and then did not finish it. This is not just Noah writing an umbrella term. But
Anyone who
the big
listened
one,
to the Rob Zombie episode knows that this is just how things are written down sometimes.
Yeah.
I would say sexual assault and
Yeah.
sexual harassment.
yeah.
I would say
Man threatening woman
Happens
for
a lot.
wanting to get an abortion.
abortion,
The
yeah.
abortion subplot
unwanted
is really
pride.
significant.
There's a pretty tough unwanted pregnancy subplot. We have kind of emotional abuse within that same storyline that I really loved how it came to a head in the final act. What else? General disregard of women's feelings.
Yeah.
A lot of alcohol abuse in this one.
On Elm Street levels.
Yeah. Lots of alcohol.
Feels more in good spirits than in the Elm Street ones, but it is still
It's
alcohol
10 years
abuse.
earlier, you know? Alcoholism was just a funny joke in
It was quirky.
1974, but by 1984 we had realized that it was a problem.
I think that's my main ones. I
I
guess
think that covers all of it, but
Lots
I-
of creepy guy calling them and being
Mhm.
very sexually explicit and gross.
yeah, the
Yeah,
in
that's
the
what-
calls.
the calls
Yeah,
themselves
that's
are very rough.
they are on purpose.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things where sometimes with these older movies we trigger warn things, and it's like they thought this was funny, but it's actually super offensive. They know that what they're doing is uncomfortable.
Yes.
That's the point.
Yeah, it's very on
so
purpose.
this is not you're gonna get your feelings hurt because the director is sexist to you in an otherwise good movie. This is this is the point, is
Yeah.
we're criticizing this.
The director is doing a thing with this.
And then I would like to add a lighthearted trigger warning for the amount of stupid 70s haircuts on men.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone looks like
okay,
a-
see, this is another
Oh,
thing.
they all look like a Rolling Stone.
See, this is another thing about Bob Clark's directing that I've noticed is he loves underwhelming men with odd haircuts.
As he should.
What was like
All
the
of
one of
them-
the first things that I pointed out in the movie? I'm like, look at that normal looking guy with an afro.
Yeah.
There's some really good I think that as far as like the casting and the styling and the costume design, I think it all works really well. But that's not a content warning.
No.
But here's a question that I have. Emma, how scared are you of gross, ugly 70s haircuts?
Pretty scared. I mean, we all
Okay.
know I don't like old movies.
It's because of the
And
haircuts, though.
The-
Part of that is the haircuts.
Oh, of course.
That's
so
me
true.
too. Me too.
As far as actual scary, it isn't very scary. The creepy guy being creepy on the phone can be a bit like jarring. Because it's like really weird,
Yeah.
like the way he talks. So
It's
for that
fun.
alone,
It's really fun.
I'll give it like a 2.
Oh.
That's fair. I described it this way, and I feel like it fits. This feels like if you were to adapt a creepypasta for film, but like in a good way, because it has all of the elements a creepypasta should have, including the kind of open-ended nonsense. Go off, Jeff.
That is partially because it is in part based on an urban legend.
Okay.
and an account
makes
of some
sense.
real murders that occurred in the 40s around Christmas time. But it really seems like it's the fact that it's a series of murders close to Christmas is about as far as that
Yeah.
inspiration goes. But it's from the the babysitter and the man upstairs.
Yes, the
Classic.
classic.
Yeah, apparently
The
that
call
was
is coming
Yeah.
from inside the house.
already. I had grown up thinking that the calls are coming from inside the house was originated with Black Christmas. Even before I knew the title was Black Christmas, I knew there was a horror movie where that was the premise of it, and I thought that was the beginning of it. Apparently, at the time that this came out, that story was not super widespread, but it was already an old story.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It seems like a story that's about as old as the
Phones.
ability for phones to do that shit.
Yeah, once you had a second phone in your house, it's like, oh man, what if somebody was to call you and you thought it was someone from somewhere else, but it was just someone
Yeah.
upstairs? Oh,
Whoa. Okay, so I'm about to get into the detailed synopsis of this movie. I'm just going to read the Wikipedia article
sure.
because this movie has a lot going on, so that's going to be the
Oh
easiest
yeah,
way
we
to
never
do it.
did the spoiler-free synopsis on this
I did.
one.
Yeah, we did.
Did we did?
It was
Oh,
very
I tuned out. My
sparse.
bad.
Yeah, I mine usually are. I try to keep it really short. So I'm gonna read this, but before I do, and again, this is the spoiler synopsis. So I'm telling you right now, I'm about to spoil the ending because the Wikipedia article does a very bad job of summarizing the ending.
They do that sometimes. I can see
It
this being a
says-
movie that's very
Oh.
difficult to summarize in writing because so much of it is so visual.
You don't
No,
even
no,
you
the
don't
rest
know.
of it's fine.
Everything is fine. The last phrase in this article says the house's telephone begins to ring, comma, implying that the
Oh.
killer is still alive.
Implying. We've
You know,
heard him talk at
the-
that point. God.
He is
Yeah, literally.
What do you mean?
No, that's
There's
not
nothing that
implying
would
that he's alive. It's implying that somebody else is.
There is
God,
no one.
I'm gonna cut me
There is
saying that.
nothing to imply. There's nothing to imply that he would have died. There is no
No,
scene that would
nothing
ever
at
have.
all.
No one ever has a confrontation with him. Of course, he's still alive. It's more like it's just reminding the audience that he's still alive.
It's hammering home
Anyway.
the bleakness. It's the hopelessness of
Mhm.
the ending of this fucking movie. God, that's frustrating.
Because the cops were so incompetent that they thought they had their guy, and instead of doing a clean sweep of the house once they found two bodies upstairs, I understand not searching.
Okay.
Never mind. I'll
To
get
be
back to
fair-
this in a
We
second.
can get.
I'll
to
get
this
back to this in a second.
Yeah.
Also, I would like to remind myself and everyone else that anyone can edit Wikipedia, and I think maybe I will. Here we go. An unseen man climbs the exterior of a sorority house where a Christmas party is being held and enters the attic. The house phone then rings, and sorority sister Jess Bradford answers to discover it is an obscene phone call from a person who was called before, who the sorority has nicknamed the Moaner. Jess and the other sorority members listen as the caller rants and screams in strange voices before abruptly threatening to kill them. Upset by the call, a younger student named Claire Harrison decides to leave and goes upstairs to her bedroom to pack her suitcase. There, unbeknownst to the rest of the sorority, Claire is attacked by the killer hiding in her... Oh my god. Claire is attacked by the killer hiding in her closet and killed. No way, Wikipedia. Sorry. The following morning, Claire's father arrives, saying that Claire failed to meet up with him at the train station. House mother Mrs. Mrs. McHenry, they call her Mrs. Mac.
Mrs.
I
Mac,
love
yeah.
her. House mother Mrs. McHenry offers to help Mr. Harrison look for her. Later that day, Jess informs her boyfriend, Peter, that she is pregnant and plans to undergo an abortion, much to his disapproval. Meanwhile, Harrison and two other sorority members, Barb and Phil, attempt to report Claire's disappearance to Sergeant Nash, who does not take them seriously at first until Chris Hayden, Claire's boyfriend, barges in angrily later in the day and demands something be done about it. A search party is held that night for Claire, in which Harrison, Chris, and most of the sorority get involved. Meanwhile, McHenry discovers Claire's body in the attic before the killer murders her with a crane hook. Shortly after, Jess answers another obscene phone call and decides to file a report with the police. Shortly after, Lieutenant Fuller arrives with a telephone lineman to tap the phone so that the police can determine the identity of the harasser. After Fuller leaves, a group of Christmas carolers appear at the front door. As Jess watches the singers, the killer sneaks into Barb's room and stabs her to death with a glass unicorn figurine, with her cries for help being drowned out by the carolers. It's a very
Freaking
good
kids.
scene.
It's such a good fucking scene.
They're leaving out all of Barb's profanity and all of Barb's
This summary is
sassery.
leaving out an awful lot of things. We'll fill it in.
Yeah.
All the things that make Barb
I
cool
think-
are not here.
I
The
think
things
what's
that make her
important to
uncool
note-
as well.
What's important to note at this point in the summary with Barb dying is that up until Barb goes up to her room to rest because she's super drunk, there's a strong vibe that she's supposed to be our main character in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
she says
so
the
fact
first
that
line in the movie.
the fact that this summary treats it like we've known Jess as the main character this whole time is hilarious.
Yeah.
Barb is the main character until she dies, pretty much, or until she goes up to bed, where she then dies.
Yeah.
Jess then receives another obscene phone call in which the caller emulates parts of an early argument she had with Peter. Lieutenant Fuller calls her to say the attempt to trace the call failed, and they both begin placing suspicions towards Peter. Jess and Phil decide to lock up every door and window in the house. Shortly after, however, Phil is murdered by the killer after finding Barb's body. Jess receives yet another obscene phone call, which is successfully traced by the police. Sergeant Nass instructs Jess to leave the house. Okay, I'm gonna track back right away. Lieutenant Fuller tells Sergeant Nash to tell Jess to leave the house and absolutely do not tell her the killer is in the house. Sergeant Nash tries to tell Jess this, and the moment he gets frustrated with her for not doing what he says immediately, he tells her the calls are coming from inside the house. Jess decides to pick up a fire poker like that's going to do anything, and goes to try and find Barb and Phil despite the fact that she's just been told to leave the house and they aren't answering her screaming. And she discovers them dead in the room and sees the killer staring at her through a door crack before she slams the door against him and flees. The killer chases after her, and unable to open the front door, Jess runs into the basement, locking it behind her. Shortly after, though, Peter breaks through the basement window and slowly approaches Jess as he worriedly asks if she's okay. Shut up, Wikipedia. That is not what happened. Peter breaks through the basement window because he's mad Jess wants an abortion, and he is definitely
He's been
not a
harassing
safe
her about
person.
it for the entire
Yes.
last day.
He begins to kind of mimic the killer in a lot of ways that he doesn't know he's doing, where he's calling her and giving her these like creepy phone calls where he basically is accusing her of killing their baby.
And also the killer was able to overhear a conversation that they had about it in person and parroted some of his words at Jess during a phone call. So she's got a
Yeah.
lot of reason to be worried about this guy.
Yes, he is not safe. So, in a state of panic, Jess beats Peter to death with a fire poker, and the police find her barely conscious as she cradles Peter's body.
Hardcore as hell,
Believing that-
honestly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Believing that Peter was the killer, the police put Jess to bed and leave her alone in the bedroom with a police officer standing outside. However, the killer's voice is heard from the attic, and a shadow is seen descending the attic's ladder before the house's telephone begins to ring, reminding the audience that the killer is still alive.
We hear
Maybe.
the killer talk. when
It's
he-
likely.
I just can't deal with the fact that they are, in this last paragraph here, implying that Jess only beat Peter to death because she was kind of freaked out and not because he had given her a lot of reasons to think that he was an unsafe person to
It's-
be around.
yeah.
Like, I don't know, breaking into her house when she didn't answer him.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. Not a good summary. Skipped over an awful
Not a
lot
good
of
summary.
important information. You know, the entire first scene, actually. It skips straight
Yeah.
from guy climbs into the house through a window to him making the first phone call. Like that's not the first
Now-
event of the movie.
Now, I'm going to be fully real with y'all. I
Sure.
would not have done a better job. So
Sure.
Me neither.
But-
Yeah.
But that's not. I mean, this is a podcast. We're
This
here to
gives us a
criticize
good-
things, aren't we?
Well-
This gives us a good
Yeah,
pair
it's
of
the
jeans
bones.
with holes in them to patch up.
Yeah.
So there's
The-
that.
The Wikipedia does bring up a really important part of the movie that I would like to use as a jumping point to ask you all a very important question.
Oh.
Oh, go off.
Did you all ever go Christmas caroling as little kids?
No.
I wrote a note about that. If it weren't
Fucking-
for the fact that I know people that did it and do it,
You do?
I would think it's something that like movies made
Okay.
up.
I've never heard anyone
um,
talk about this shit.
Okay. When I was in middle school,
Hell.
the
Middle
church
school,
that
can you
I
imagine?
the church that I have not so lovingly referred to as the whore church
Oh, right.
used to yes, you guys know this,
Yeah.
used to have the youth group go caroling to a bunch of specifically members of the church's houses.
And their youth group.
So
had
it
middle
wasn't just
schoolers?
around. Yeah.
There's a middle school youth group at a lot of any
Okay.
bigger church tends to
Oh
have a
no,
middle
no,
school
no!
and high
Ours
school.
had a middle school youth. I say middle school. I was in middle school. The youth group was. The church is so small that the youth
Oh,
group was middle
Okay.
and high school.
Okay. Okay.
And by that I mean it was the pastor's children, me and my brother, and maybe another pair of siblings, and that was it.
Okay. It's everyone under 18 in the church.
Yes, you nailed
Okay.
it.
Completely
Yeah,
different situation. Than
Anyone
what I was
over
envisioning.
13 and under 18
Okay. Yeah.
in the church. So we would go to congregation members who were like older. We would go to their houses and they would have cookies for us or whatever, and they would just
Figgy
be
pudding?
happy to get visitors because it's the holiday season and they're old and maybe they don't have a lot of family. And we would sing and that would be that. So yeah, I did.
Huh.
I don't remember my childhood very well.
Sure.
But I have like a vague recollection of maybe doing the door-to-door caroling. And my brother Daniel listens to these podcasts and he might text me and be like, you never fucking did that.
Hi, Dan.
But I have like a vague memory of maybe I did it, but
Daniel,
I
pull
know
this shit up.
that at one point I went with a church to like an old folks home and caroled there for the residents.
Sure. I mean, we've all come on, we've all played music
we've
at
all
an old
done
folks
that.
home. I mean,
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
didn't think to mention my experience in that field.
I
I'm
try
saying,
to forget
saying
about
that as
mine,
though it's a joke. That
personally.
is actually something that me and Noah have done, but not in a Christmas caroling context.
Yeah. Just in a singing religious songs
Yeah.
context.
Yeah,
Yep.
For me, it was mostly playing guitar and trying to make it sound less like my own normal style because I don't play acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Valid. Makes sense.
They wouldn't like it if I started ripping solos.
Yeah. An interesting thing when we're watching like these older movies.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned this before because I'm like, as we're looking back on this movie, we're coming in with our own like thoughts on morality and like how society should be and like
Yeah, all our
civil
own
rights and all
assumptions
these
of
other
norms and
things.
such. Yeah,
Yeah, that didn't necessarily exist back then.
sure.
And so when we're watching this movie, and especially like with the way that it talks about how women like struggle to be like heard and listened to, and the conversations around like abortion as well, I was like, what sort of stuff was happening around when this movie came out?
All right.
And one of the things that I think is notable is women weren't able to open their own bank account nationally
Right.
until 1974, which is the year
Oh.
that this movie came out.
Yeah.
You know, you forget that type of stuff was like that recent.
Right.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And I'm thinking like, because obviously there's a huge degree of, I don't like the word, but with a lot of the male characters and the way they handle the situations and the way they react to the situations and things, there's a lot of kind of, there's like a lot of ownership kind of vibes
Ooh.
coming from a lot of the guys.
You talking about the
And
dad, maybe?
The,
The
dad,
dad,
is a big
the
one for
boyfriend,
sure.
both
The
For
boyfriend
sure.
the
as
dad
well, yeah.
and both Chris and Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But then
Yeah, yeah.
also a big thing is just like with I forget the character's name, but the girl who's pregnant and wants to get an
Jess.
abortion and her boyfriend
Jess.
being like, don't do that. That'll make me really mad. You don't want to see me mad.
Yeah.
You'll regret this.
Yeah, he does kind of try to
And-
threaten her over it at one point, and she just doesn't really let him.
Yeah. And
Girl boss.
like watching the scene from like today's perspective, I'm like, oh, this is like a commentary on like how threatening men can be like in these situations. But then I'm like, but back then, would that scene be read the same way? Are we supposed to be more sympathetic, or do they expect the audience to be more sympathetic towards the man because he has the righteous position of not wanting to like abort the baby? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just things that make you go, huh?
I don't.
So
I think
I don't
the
think
rest of the
you're-
movie makes me think that he's clearly in the wrong, but definitely
Yeah.
at the beginning, you have that that like question is there.
the moment that I knew that this movie was fully on Jess's side, to me,
Mhm.
was the conversation that Peter and Jess have, where Jess says, "Remember how when we started dating,
Yeah.
you wanted to be a concert pianist, and I had my dreams too. I still have those dreams, even now that you decided you want to throw yours away."
Yeah.
Mhm.
God, I love that line. It's like,
That's such a thing that, like, at
Mm.
growing up in a conservative household, and this is something that, like, always was a stressful point to me, was like, and in previous relationships to being with Noah, was always feeling like my dreams and my wants were secondary to the man that I was with.
Mhm.
I was with one guy who wanted to open a church and pretty much expected me to be a pastor's wife. I dated another guy who wanted to be a park ranger and pretty much decided that we were gonna do like camper life. And I was like willing to go along with these things and have these adventures, but I always felt like what I wanted, I never even really had the time to think of what I wanted, because what they had an idea and I was like, well, you guys have a really strong idea. I guess that's what we'll be doing then, because I had this already sinking feeling that whatever I came up with that I wanted to do was just not going to be as important.
Mhm.
So I really appreciated that conversation. I really identified with it, of like, yeah, that is why I don't want to have kids to this day. I have things that I still want to do. And every single person I know in my life who has born a child, basically, once that child is out in the world, their life has ended, and it has stayed ended until that kid is gone. And most of the people I know who they had a child and that child is gone, they don't know what to do with themselves anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you know,
that's
not to rag on adults with children. I'm sorry, Jeff. I just looked up and saw that your hand was already
No,
up.
you're
it's
good.
been up. Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
I was
My
expecting to
bad.
wait. You're good.
But I'm not going to stop. Not to rag on adults with children too much, but they really do tell you, "Oh my God, having a kid was the best thing that ever happened to me." And in the same breath, will tell you, "Yeah, having a kid actually completely changed my priorities." And they say that like it's a good thing.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that like you should be setting your priorities from like the moment you decide what they're going to be forever. But frankly, another reason I don't want kids is I'm selfish. I have my things I want to do and I don't want to throw them away
Yeah.
for, maybe it is the best thing that's ever going to happen to me.
I don't.
Yeah,
I think
but
it's unfair to a
People
child
don't always
too.
talk
Yeah.
about it in that kind of way. They're like, "Oh, if I turned back the clock and didn't have kids, I'd have a lot of stuff I'd love to do." That's not a selling point.
That's It feels like resentment
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
towards the
Mhm.
child that you made the decision to have, and I never want to resent a child, and that's why I want to make sure that when I have, if I ever have a
Say.
child, physically I don't think I'm able to have kids, but if that were ever to happen, if it were possible, I would want to be in a position where I was ready to give up that much, or I didn't have anything left to give up because I had achieved it and I was ready to put my full attention towards a child.
Yeah.
And Jess is in college in a sorority house. So what the fuck? Just because Peter failed his one audition, which it looked like he sucked before she dropped that news on
Yeah.
him. I'm sorry. I could tell the moment he started playing that he sucked.
He had been practicing. He's been rehearsing for this thing for 4 days straight, doing nothing else, and that shit ruins
hasn't
your brain.
slept.
No, seriously.
I get
I'm
it.
just saying, I'm not saying forgive him for anything at all. I'm just saying be forgiving to his piano playing, because rehearsing for that long fucks you up in ways that you cannot comprehend.
Oh no, I
Mhm,
absolutely believe it. I just knew the moment I heard him start playing that that's why he sucked, was because he'd been staying up that late,
Right.
and not. But I also knew that he was going to functionally blame it on Jess, and I was right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, he
So-
says
Yeah.
from the beginning that that's what's happening, right? When he's like, you have any idea how important this afternoon is to me? It's like, oh, okay. So now you already know he's going to bomb his audition and he's going to
Yeah.
blame her for it. Boom. Which,
And I know, and again, I know why, because it's a logical reason. But I
yeah.
also know that because of who he is.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
the way that he says it that you know it's like a little bit malicious, actually.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To me, though...
Sorry, you've had your-
It's a preemptive blame.
Yeah, I've had my hand up this whole time to jump us back to, whenever you wrapped up, to jump us back to that conversation when she tells him that she still has her dreams and stuff, because I love the fact that when his response is, well, that doesn't really, you can still do whatever you want. And she's like, no, I can't marry you, dude. And he's like, well, why not? Why couldn't you? I mean, you could still do what you want and we'd be married and it wouldn't affect anything. And she says, I don't want to marry you, Peter. And it's at this point that it kind of
Mhm.
becomes fully clear to you that it's been obvious from the beginning. He's been super serious about her. She is not all that serious about him. She's in college.
Mhm.
She's with him to have fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, her
And-
friends like him, which is a great bonus and stuff, right? Every time he's around, Phil says hi to him and stuff. She talks about him as though, like, she doesn't mind having him around and such. But when Jess talks to him every time, she seems less happy after she's talked to him, because every time he tells her that he loves her and she says, I know.
Yeah, real Han
The fact
Solo
that
about
he-
it.
She's
Okay, so this is
not
interesting.
as into him as he is into her. Not by a long shot.
This is really interesting timing because something that has gone viral on TikTok recently
Oh God.
is a man's wedding vows.
Oh, that too.
Oh, what were you
I
gonna
think
say?
I know what
I thought you were
going
going to talk about the noodle guy.
Oh no, I was going to talk about the wedding vows. A man, his entire wedding vows, he chose to say what he quote unquote wrote. He could have just picked the standard. And this man says, I promise to smack that ass every day, but bow.
Oh, this is not what I thought.
And the fucking officiant says, is that it? And he says, he's laughing, but no one else is laughing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And he says, that's all I have. And the officiant says, are you sure? And he says, I didn't write anything else. And
Oh
one of
my
his groomsmen
God.
says, come on, Cody. No one is laughing.
Yeah.
No one. She
Ugh.
clearly she's beautiful. She's got all this effort that she's clearly put into her dress. That's all he can say. And to me, the difference is he's basically he feels like he can get away with saying whatever he wants to her that
Yeah.
is disrespectful, and she will not leave him
Mhm.
because
as a man,
but-
he's allowed. He is
Because
not
she
required
refuses-
socially
right.
to respect her, so he doesn't.
and she is not taking the hint because she probably because of him doesn't think that she can get better. Now, with Jess, she is pretty consistently dropping him big hints that she doesn't want him around either and that she doesn't respect him.
Mhm.
And his response is to try and convince her that she can't do better and that she belongs with him.
Well,
And it's really interesting to see that.
It feels like a lot of it isn't even convincing her that she can't do better, but just like trying to guilt trip her about how she's hurting him.
Right.
You know, with
Yeah.
all the "this is
And
my
it's like,
future,"
yeah, I know I'm
how
hurting
important
you.
this audition is, all that kind of stuff, and it's like, well,
It's his future.
this
But
is her entire
yes,
future
the
as well.
audition-
Actually,
okay,
it is an equal
right,
threat
so-
to both of you. Except
is
that
another
it's
big
fucking
one,
not
yeah.
at all. It's worse for her because it's her goddamn body.
you're
like,
acting like you failing. This is a really interesting parallel that I'm sure is intentional.
yes,
Is failing the audition ruins his life? Maybe.
potentially.
But no, there will be
Because
other
he lets it,
auditions.
because he chooses to
Right.
let it.
But for her, having a child absolutely will ruin her life. It will ruin her body.
Yeah.
It will ruin her relationships. Like,
Well, and
It will
marrying him is
actually-
the end of all of her agency in her own life.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
he doesn't. He
And-
refuses to see that, of course,
Of course.
because he's the one who gets
I think
it,
it's a
but-
really interesting and intentional choice. And I think the only thing I'll say about this movie as far as feminism goes is I think that in the time only women would have got it.
Mhm.
I would
I-
not be
I
surprised
am
by
not
that at all.
I am not sure that a man watching this movie in the 70s. Maybe I'm
That
like
said,
obviously
it's
there
a
are
man
always
who
exceptions.
made this movie in the 70s.
Absolutely.
So
Who insisted on adding these themes specifically?
Into it, yeah.
into a
So
movie
I
that
think
didn't
that-
originally have them, but
I think that, especially given what Emma mentioned, I think it's like a Barbie movie situation where we have a good amount. It's like, take your boyfriend to Black Christmas and his reaction tells you how you should feel about him.
Yeah.
Twitter in 1974.
Oh my God, I can't believe this.
But yeah, similar to the Barbie movie, I feel like this movie cuts its men a good amount of slack. Because like Emma said, I can see a sympathy. I am not, but I can see how someone would be sympathetic to Peter.
Sure.
Absolutely, I can.
Yeah.
I can see how someone would find the foibles of Nash to be amusing, the way that Lieutenant What's-His-Face Fuller does. You know, I would see a lot of that. The dad maybe even finding his peril and his upset at losing his daughter to be sympathetic.
Sure.
I absolutely can see that. I think there's an interesting and intentional parallel drawn between him and the mom who's missing her 13-year-old daughter, but no one goes out searching for the 13-year-old daughter because the mother is begging them to. They go looking for the sorority girl because her dad and boyfriend asked them to.
Yeah.
There's so much intentionality going on here, but I don't think it's unsympathetic to men the same way that I don't think the Barbie movie was unsympathetic to men. And I think that that's not, and I see a lot of people arguing that the Barbie movie is a bad feminist movie because it is so sympathetic to men. Personally, I don't agree with that.
I
think in this movie, I also am like, the thing is, men exist in this world and men are people. And I know that they've got a lot of sympathy and privilege for a long time, but I don't think that in telling stories that are about things that affect both of these like binary genders that have been like the social focus for so long, I don't think that we suddenly need to neglect how this has affected men either. Maybe the Barbie movie censors it a little too much. I can understand that. I don't think it's a bad movie because it does.
Sure.
Anyway, that's a side tangent, but I think it's relevant to this movie's themes.
I feel like this movie in particular is kind of on a sliding scale with the amount of like leeway that it gives its men in their, you know, their cultural blame and everything, because it treats the boyfriend pretty kindly because he's not really causing any not Peter, but
no, Chris,
Clara,
what the kids call
Chris,
a himbo.
He seems to be a bit, right? He's a hockey player and everything.
Yeah.
He's the only reason that the cops take the fact that she's missing seriously, because he goes and the cop knows him and he says, why isn't anything being done about this? And the John Saxon cop is like, because I know you, I'm listening to this. And the fact that the girl was missing,
he says it explicitly,
meant nothing to them. Yeah, he says pretty explicitly, I'll listen to you. Even though other people had already been there talking to his people earlier that day and they got dismissed, they got shrugged off. I have like a list here in my notes, actually, of women's concerns getting dismissed by men in this movie. It's a damn paragraph. It's 5 lines of my notes. Nothing occupies 5 lines of my notes. It's only 1 page. But I've just got all these examples listed of how they are constantly talking about problems that they're dealing with, even little insignificant stuff, like when Mrs. Mack is having a hard time opening the door and says that she's going to call the landlord to have it fixed again, and how she's told him 100 times that they need to have that thing fixed because nobody can manage to work the door appropriately because it doesn't fit the fucking the frame right. Even little insignificant stuff like that, because the door being broken never comes back. It doesn't matter at all. But even when you get down into the little insignificant pieces of the movie, it's still just examples of women's problems getting dismissed by the men who have power over them.
Dare I say it does come back because she can't open the front door to get out.
That does come back a little bit. You know what? That is coming back, isn't it? I was too busy focusing on the lighting. My bad.
The splash of yellow lighting signifies the use of old fluorescent bulbs that were just kind of yellow.
That's but yeah, the dismissal of women's concerns and this one it's so realistic compared to something like The Invisible Man.
It manages
which
not
is,
to feel too heavy-handed, right?
No,
it's incredibly heavy-handed, but it does
subtle.
it in a way that you don't feel like it's bad.
It's heavy-handed in the way that it's unfortunately stuff that a lot of women have gone through.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of the times, especially when I love the choice to set it in a sorority house, because on top of just women not being taken seriously. Sororities
Yeah.
are taken the least seriously out of anyone.
I mean, dare I say, in this very movie, Barb
this.
drops a really insensitive line about townies.
Absolutely.
Oh
yes.
yeah, no,
I-
there's the internalized misogyny there.
yeah.
That's really
Wow,
interesting.
and it plays into another little sub thing of Barb's like classism, because
Mhm.
she's got, her family apparently has a little more money than everybody else's, as we pick up from phone calls with her mom and stuff. And she is consistently super shitty to everyone that she perceives as being like lower status than her. And Claire, the missing girl, is one of those people.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And it's really, again, it's nuanced in a way that is depressingly modern.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like, that's definitely something that I experienced in college specifically, where as in college, this is, if we ever talk about American Psycho, I will.
Of course we're going to
You
talk
know
about
what is a
American
Christmas
Psycho.
movie? You know what a Christmas movie
Next
is?
Christmas.
Next Christmas, we'll talk about American Psycho, and I'll go even harder on my business school bullshit.
Hell yeah.
But that was something that definitely was a problem
Oh, yeah.
in college, was just never being taken seriously because, and this is from a school that kept trying to present these ideas of like feminism and especially in the business school, because business schools, for all that this is a Baptist school in Texas, business schools are in touch with modern trends and the modern trend in 2016 and still today
Right.
is social activism as a brand. So even Baylor could not ignore that. And as such, like, a lot of the professors were, especially in my marketing classes, were very aware of activism as marketing. We talked about Colin Kaepernick and the Nike commercial. You know, we talked about all this stuff. And even still, in groups in these classes, I would be experiencing what felt like a BuzzFeed video where I would say, this is my idea. And then, God bless his heart, this little IT kid who happened to have to take a marketing class, immediately this other man repeats my idea like he came up with it. And the little IT kid goes, actually, I think Carolina just said that.
Imagine. Fucking.
But again, it was a man having to come in and
Yeah.
back me up on that.
Yeah.
Because there were 3 other women in the class and we all just looked at each other because it wasn't fucking worth it. You know, that's something about this movie that, like, yeah, I was surprised by how prescient it was for a 74. But
And-
again, it's the same thing with Ripley in Alien.
Oh,
I just
totally.
I see that same kind of thing.
Yeah. Almost as though there's always been people who considered women to be people or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
it may
crazy.
interest you to
we
know,
appreciate them.
after what I mentioned about the abortion subplot, it may interest you to know also that the sorority setting was also a thing that Bob Clark put onto the script, because he
What was in this
wanted-
script?
The script was the calls are coming from inside the house, killer hiding in the building thing, and it was originally set to be more straightforwardly based on the urban legend, and it was going to be called The Babysitter or something like something of
okay.
that nature. And he decided to change it to put it in the sorority house, have all the main characters be college students and such, because he wanted the characters to feel as much like real people living in the real world as they possibly could, and he thought that was the best way to do it. And he wanted to also address real societal current time problems, and he felt that that was the best place to be bringing it forward.
College campuses are a microcosm, especially of social issues, a lot of
Yeah.
the time.
And it gave him the opportunity to talk about all these women's issues that I don't know that really got addressed in a whole lot of movies around this time.
I haven't watched a lot of 70s movies, so
I
couldn't
haven't
say.
watched a lot of 70s movies that aren't loaded down with specific brands of misogyny. So, like,
So true.
And
I think most
most
yeah, that's
70s
a really good
movies
point.
that I
All I've
watch
watched are
tend to be loaded
James
down
Bond.
with specific brands of misogyny, whether it's James Bond brand or Clint Eastwood brand or Dario Argento brand
is
misogyny.
such a good point.
It's always there. This movie
That is so
not
interesting.
filled with that. So, I don't know. I mean,
To put this up next to Man with a Golden Gun again, it is actually insane
God, yeah.
that all of those Bond movies that came after Man with a Golden Gun existed after this movie.
Right.
That's actually
Yeah.
like super disheartening in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That like
yeah.
it is just the reality of the world that we live in, that there will simultaneously be people out there who like Greta Gerwig and like what's his face who made this movie. I am
Bob
so
Clark.
sorry, sir. Yeah.
He's
the
dead,
fact
don't
that
worry.
there will okay,
He won't
rest
hear
in
you.
peace, sir.
Not like Greta Gerwig, who listens regularly.
I wish she would.
I'm
Hi,
glad
Greta.
she doesn't.
Hi Greta. I love you.
Hi, Greta.
But,
I
like-
hope this is your first episode of this podcast. Don't listen to the others.
please.
Don't listen to the last one.
But like, well, there are always going to be people out there who are cognizant of this stuff and who are trying so hard
Yeah.
to get people to listen and to take it seriously, even if they have to couch it in scary creepypasta, The Call is Coming
Right.
from Inside the House, or the Barbie movie, you know? And then simultaneously, there will be movies like, I am so glad that this is actually the way it is. Like Oppenheimer or like Man with a Golden Gun
Yeah.
that come out the same
The same
year
time.
and treat their women like objects.
Hmm.
I am saying that with my full chest. Oppenheimer fanboys can fight me.
Okay.
I don't know if Oppenheimer fanboys would fight me about that one. I think the women are treated like objects pretty
Clearly,
clearly
you
in,
think?
in
They are,
Oppenheimer.
but I think it was done with purpose and intent, but
think?
that's not a talk I want to have on the podcast, not about that
Sure,
movie.
sure, sure.
That's
All
fair.
right, so let's get back to
We've
talking
had this
about-
conversation in
Let's get
person
back to
already,
talking
I
about
think,
Black
as
Christmas
well.
then. And do y'all mind if I take a few minutes to talk about something that has nothing to do with the feminism of the movie and everything to do with a man named Billy who lives
do,
in an
actually.
I would
alley
love
for
to talk
this
about
movie.
Billy.
Okay, so
Let's talk about Billy.
since the summary did such a shit job of presenting this stuff, I'm gonna just run through what we get from the killer in this movie. We get a POV shot of him walking up to the house, looking in through the door, and then climbing up a wall and in through the attic window. That's how he enters the house. And we see all of this while hearing the sounds of a party inside and seeing scenes of it. And then we get him climbing down out of the attic, going into a hallway, listening in on the conversation that Barb has on the phone with her mother, wherein she finds out that her mom like changed her Christmas plans and abandoned her for Christmas like at the last possible minute. And this is part of a longer running thread where we keep finding out things that suggest to us that Barb kind of has had a shit childhood, a shit relationship with her family, etc. And that's largely the reason that she is the way that she is being drunk for the whole movie up until she dies.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning also, this is Margot Kidder, who went on to play Lois Lane in the Superman movies, and she
Yeah.
plays such a convincing drunk. Oh my god, incredible. Also, her hair looks fantastic for the whole movie, but that's beside the point.
She plays a drunk that definitely doesn't think she's drunk
Yes.
very well.
She plays a drunk that is like the kind of drunk a person is when they drink a lot. When
Mhm.
you've met them
Yeah.
and like most times that you've hung out with them, they've been drunk the whole time. This is the way that they are. She does a really, really good job of this. But I'm talking about Billy right now. I'm talking about the killer. So he is never seen clearly, directly in the movie. He is played by a collection of different actors. In the POV shots, that is just the
Oh.
camera guy. Anytime you see his hands in the POV shots, that's the camera guy's hands. His name's Burt Dunk.
Thanks, Bert
Good
Dunk.
old Dunk.
Old Dunk. Thanks, Dunk.
You really slam dunked that job.
The phone calls are voiced. The character is voiced by 5 separate people, mostly just this one guy who committed really, really hard to it. He's the one who did most of what you hear in like the phone calls and stuff. And fun fact, some of that he recorded while standing on his head because he thought it would make him sound crazier.
You know what?
You know-
Sometimes you have a real
Good job.
Sometimes
a real weirdo.
Sometimes you
Sometimes
need a
a real
guy who's
freak
going to
pops
commit
into the
to a voice
studio.
role so hard. Chris Pratt could never. Anyways.
Chris Pratt could never.
So you do get to see him. You see like his silhouette in a few different shots, right? And these silhouettes, he is played by an actor that nobody has ever identified. Bob Clark, director, claimed not even to remember who it was who did it. The guy is not credited. Nobody who had a hand in playing Billy actually is credited, except for the one voice guy. And he was only one of 4 people who did the voice. Other people who did the voicing have been identified. They're just not in the credits of the movie. One of them was Bob Clark himself. One of the times that you see Billy's shadow, that's Bob Clark's shadow. And they were basically in physical representations of this man's form. They made sure to use people who were different sizes from one another as well, because they wanted to really distort your perception of what this guy might look like. There is a scene where we get a good look at his eye, and it's pretty clear that he's wearing like a weird contact on it as well, so it's kind of tough to tell whose eye that might potentially have been. People have theorized that it's what's the actor's name? Keir Dullea, I think, the guy who plays Peter, and he says that it wasn't him. Of course he does.
I was
'cause
wondering
it
how
might
many
be,
shots.
right?
Yeah, because I was wondering how many shots were done with Peter, because I
He
don't
says
know.
none.
Interesting.
It seems like the couple of times
definitely
you
would
see
thought one as
his
well.
silhouette well enough that you can make out his hair. There's one that kind of makes you think this might be Peter, and there's another that makes you think that's definitely not Peter's hair. You do you get a little bit of a look at his face when he goes to kill Barb, because in that one, this is the most Giallo-ish of all the kills, right?
Oh yeah.
Where
Easy.
you got the crystal sculptures all over the place, and he's stabbing her with one of them, and the blood is bright Giallo red, and it's intercut
And then we
with the
see it
clips
through
of
a
the Christmas
mirror, and-
carolers, and we're seeing things obscured through the glass sculptures and everything. And there is just like one shot where he's holding the unicorn sculpture that he's about to stab her with up over his head as he stands over her on the bed, and he is waiting for her to wake up before he kills her. And you see this ray of light just coming across his face and illuminating the one eye. I love the way that this shot looks. It's like that one shot in Hellraiser 2022 that I talked about for way too long. Really, really cool. Love it. The first kill of the movie, though, the one where he has sneaked down into Claire's room, hidden in her closet behind a bunch of hanging things. The way that he kills her, this wasn't mentioned in the summary, is he waits for her to walk back over to the closet as she's like, she's packing her bag. And she's walking back and forth between her bed and her closet, and he just waits for the right opportunity. She comes back to the closet, and he pulls a plastic bag over her head, and she suffocates. And for the entire rest of the movie, you periodically get shots from his perspective where he is up in the attic and he has her corpse posed in a rocking chair, plastic bag still over her head, sucked into her mouth. For some reason, that detail makes a huge difference to me.
Oh yeah,
And
no,
he
it's
sits next to her
uncomfortable.
and rocks her corpse in the chair, sometimes singing to her, other times just crying. And it is incredibly unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
It's
We get
really good.
other slashers where they play around with the corpses, right? Jason and Michael both have their like, here's a museum of your friends that I have killed kind of scenes toward the closing circuit of the movie, right? We don't get guys doing this shit though. You don't see this in a
No.
lot of other movies where he seems to have a real emotional relationship with this corpse. And it seems like from the things that he says, from, things that he sings to the corpse, things that he says during phone calls and stuff, you can kind of start to put together a little bit of a backstory for him that if you saw Halloween before you saw this, as we all did, is going to sound a little bit familiar, where it kind of seems as though he was somehow involved in the death of his younger sibling, Agnes, and his parents figured out pretty quickly that he was the one who did it, and he is always reenacting these moments in the phone calls and stuff like that. Nothing is ever actually said explicitly, but he speaks in his parents' voices, saying things like, "Filthy Billy, we know what you did," or "Where's the baby? Where is Agnes?" All that kind of thing.
What your mother and I would like to
What your
know,
mother
which is
and I
my
would
favorite
like
one
to
that he
know.
repeats.
Yeah. Oh.
God, it's so
That,
so
and he
good.
says, "Where's
He's
the baby?"
such a well.
lot, and I love the song that he sings. He sings it all the way through once, and he sings partway through a line of it later while crying, and he can't get through the whole thing. And that's one of the biggest things, I think, because it's the lyrics of the song are about their dad going hunting to get a rabbit so that he can warm his daughter with a rabbit skin by wrapping her in it. Like, I don't know why that's what hits so hard for me. But like, just what we're given of him is so little and so vague and enigmatic and presented in such like little pieces here and there, right?
It's literally exactly what you would want, again, from expanding an urban legend.
Really, yeah.
Is that all we get is another urban legend.
He's gonna Jeff the kill you.
He's gonna Jeff the kill you.
Oh no, I'm being Jeff the Killed.
I really enjoyed his characterization. It
Yeah.
was the scariest part of the movie.
Yeah.
Was just seeing it wasn't the kills itself.
Yeah, it's the way he does it. He
it was-
seems genuinely upset by a lot of things.
It was the moments in between, and I like that he doesn't move from where he is, so we don't have to focus on how he gets to or from where he is or what
Yeah.
he's doing.
Anytime he's doing anything,
just get moments-
you get shown it. You know what he's doing.
And otherwise, he's hanging out in the attic.
Yeah. The scene
With
where
corpses.
he kills Mrs. Mack, I found really interesting as well, because I described in the scene
Hey, why do they have a crane hook in your
to bring
attic
stuff
as a
up
store
and
already
down,
has?
to bring heavy things up and down from the attic, I thought.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that
It seems
kinda
like
made
it's,
sense to
it's
me.
Only
suspended
because-
directly above the hatch, and that
Yeah.
feels like it makes sense to me if your attic is only ladder accessible.
I recant that frustration.
Nina's not thinking with a 70s brain like you and me right now.
Anyways,
Yeah,
though.
I'm sorry. I wasn't alive in the 70s, unlike you two.
Oh, you two are so old.
Yeah.
So old.
Born in the 90s,
Yeah.
but grew up
Dang.
watching movies from the 60s and 70s, so, yeah, I mean, you know.
You guys have, just a little bit.
Okay, but I mentioned in the scene...
This one goes out to my mom, born in 57 or whatever she always loves to say.
32, I think.
32.
Yeah. That was what she said one time. Anyways, so I mentioned in the scene where Billy kills Barb that he sits over her waiting for her to wake up before he does it. And he's talking to her as he does this. He refers to his victims as well, he doesn't refer to them. He addresses his victims as Agnes. He calls them by his sister's name. Or I presume he was that she was his sister, by everything that we are given, which is not much, I suppose. But he waits for Mrs. Mack to see him as well. We are shown him very, very clearly holding that hook and waiting for her to turn toward him. And his hands are like shaking the whole time. And it could just be that holding that thing is a little bit difficult. I don't think that's it. I've got a theory about Billy.
Okay.
And the theory is he's trying to get caught. Because after he kills Mrs. Mack with those shaking hands that he waited for her to see him with, he, stabs her head through with this hook, and we see her later hanging from it. Whoa, gnarly as hell. The cab driver who was supposed to be picking her up to take her to wherever she was going, to her sister's for the holidays, I believe she says. The cab driver finally loses patience and drives away, and we get this POV shot from Billy where he watches the cab drive away, and he looks at Claire's corpse sitting right by the window where he keeps her. And he starts screaming and crying, and he throws a little tantrum about it up there. He starts smashing things in the attic. It seems like he's really, really upset about that cab driver leaving. And you would think he's just successfully committed another murder without getting caught. Surely he's not going to be sad about that, right? But then when he makes one of those phone calls, he says, "Please help me."
Mm-hmm.
He talks about being stopped a little bit. And it reminded me of some true crime stuff that I have the misfortune of knowing about. Any of y'all ever heard of the weepy-voiced killer?
I don't
No.
think so.
Okay, so I looked it up to find out if this happened before this movie came out. This happened 6 years after the movie. So I know it didn't inspire the events of the movie. Basically, he was a serial killer from 1980 to 1982 who killed women and then called the cops to tell on himself. And you can listen to the calls, and I made the mistake of doing so, and it bothers me an awful lot to this day. Dude was really, really upset about the fact that he kept murdering those people. He was begging the cops to come catch him. He would tell them exactly where to find his victims, and multiple times he offered to surrender himself to the authorities. He would be saying things like, "God damn it, why haven't you caught me yet? Why won't somebody stop me? I can't stop myself." And he's like crying the entire time he did these. Eventually he did end up getting caught, and he died in prison from skin cancer in the 90s. But this reminded me an awful lot of that, where it kind of seems like from the backstory that we are given, right? From what little we can piece together from what we are given. If my read of his backstory is correct, that he, whether intentionally or unintentionally, killed his little sister, I think he has gone through the rest of his life consumed with guilt for that and is now committing more murders in the hopes of getting caught so that he can be brought to justice. He wants to be held accountable. And this movie is largely him committing crimes that are so obvious, so egregious, so out in the open that it seems like he couldn't possibly not get caught. But then, against all odds, the cops are so apathetic and so incompetent that he manages not to get caught. And not only does he not get caught, the cops don't even find the corpses of half of his victims, despite them being, one of them literally on display right in the front window of the attic. Anyone approaching the house,
visible.
if they were to look,
Yeah.
we see this in the final shot, because the final shot is the view of her face in the window, and it just pans back and back and back and back. And that's the shot that the credits roll on, with her still visible in the window, and that's when the phone starts ringing to indicate that Jess is fucking dead, because he makes those phone calls after he makes a kill. And if the phone is ringing then, it means he has killed again, and that means Jess is dead. I feel like he's doing this because he's trying to be obvious. He's trying to make sure somebody catches him, and it's just really, really unfortunate happenstance that he doesn't get caught. What do you think of that?
I like that. I think that makes sense to me.
I love the idea that the killer is equally as frustrated as the victims as to how incompetent the police are.
Right? And I read a part of an analysis by someone else where they were talking about how the killer goes unnoticed because he is so, basically so animalistic, so on the fringes of what we recognize as humanity, that he just doesn't get noticed because he's that far off the radar. And I feel like that kind of dovetails into what I'm saying kind of well, right? Like, he's trying to be obvious. He has no concept of hiding what he's doing, really, other than that he's sneaking around. But he's really just doing shit. It seems like when he's killing, he enjoys having them be aware of him before he does it. It seems like he likes the moment of getting caught before doing it. And like he's maybe that it's like a hedonic treadmill thing, right? Where it's like at first it was enough just for Claire to see him as he suffocated her in that plastic bag, and then it was enough for him initially that that Mrs. Max saw him before he killed her as well. But then at the notion of the cab driver catching him and getting blue-balled by that, more or less, he's like really frustrated, because that would have been so much more, wouldn't it?
Right. Well, what was I going to say?
I don't think that's it necessarily, but like,
no, but it would be right.
It's up for interpretation.
I think it's really interesting that I don't think he cleans up the bodies ever. Like, he takes Claire's body away, but it seems like that's because he wants it. I don't think that he does anything with the others.
Yeah, it seems more like he just wanted to hang out with her than that he wanted to hide her.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just so surprised that the cops wouldn't look through the house. You know,
yeah,
I mean,
by the end of the movie, it's inexcusable.
Though, are you really surprised?
Well, see, I am at the end of the movie. At the beginning, you know, they looked through the bedrooms, right? They might have checked the basement. I don't think they did. But they looked through the main rooms of the house. And I kind of, if everyone says, oh, we thought she went to class. Oh, we thought she went home. Oh, we assumed she was just out for the day. I understand not looking more in the house.
And it seems like the attic is disused. So
as soon as you find 2 bodies, 3 bodies, counting Peter.
Yeah.
Why the hell? And you're still looking for a missing girl.
Yeah.
Why the hell?
Especially because it's like a very prominent attic. Like, it's not like...
It's a standing attic.
Yeah. It's like very easy to get up and down that.
But did you catch this? So final scene, right? Once again, the summary did a poor job of describing this, because so much of what goes on in this movie is with the way that it's shown, right? The final scene, we get, it's a slow pan back shot, Jess lying motionless in bed, seemingly unconscious, and we hear the cops and such discussing around her the fact that they suspected that it was Peter, they should have known, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And as the camera is continuously panning back, they're like, oh, what's that noise downstairs? Journalists, well, tell him to meet me at the station. And the John Saxon detective guy gets ready to leave, and he tells Sergeant Nash to wrap up. He says, Nash, you're good to wrap up, right? And Nash says, yeah. And then literally like 5 seconds later, somebody tells Nash that like they need a ride somewhere, and Nash is like, yeah, all right, let's go. And he just leaves without doing anything else. So
Well,
Nash,
not only that-
who is directly through his inaction responsible for most of the movie occurring, managed to fuck up the biggest thing one last time and do absolutely nothing to wrap up the investigation. And then this is another one of those things that I think really caps off all the rest of the themes of the movie about women. In the room, Claire's dad, Mr. Harrison, like faints from shock, and they take him to the hospital and leave Jess, the actual victim of something, lying alone in bed, alone in this house, and they just shut off the lights and leave her there, when Mr. Harrison's got nothing wrong with him at all.
No. He passed out from shock.
But he's a
also,
man.
at some point during that, someone makes a comment, don't worry, sir, I'm sure we'll find Claire soon.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I'm sure she'll turn up. Like, what the fuck is that? What is that? It's absurd, isn't it? And also, actually, can I talk about Mr. Harrison for a minute? I know I've already just talked for too long about something
God,
else.
I love Mr. Harrison.
God.
He comes
Now
in
go off.
and he judges every bit of decor in the room.
He judges everything.
He's like,
everything,
well, who's this
everything.
boy?
Yeah.
And she's
I
like,
didn't
that's
send
one of
my-
the city boys
I didn't
that
send
she's
my daughter
seeing.
to college to go around drinking and picking up boys. And I love what Mrs. Max says about that, talking to herself afterward while drinking her, like, I don't know, toilet brandy or whatever.
It's a rye, I believe.
Oh, is it a rye? Okay, all right. Or maybe it was the one that was hidden in a book that time. I don't know. She's got
It was the same both
stashed
times. I did check.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And she's like, God, everyone expects me to watch over the morals of every girl that comes in and out of this house, and these women are too damn horny.
Yeah.
She's just like, I
Hump
can't
the Eiffel
possibly do
Tower if they
anything.
no,
could
it's
get
the
up
Leaning
there.
Tower of Pisa.
Oh, Leaning Tower of Pisa. My bad.
Yeah, it's very
was
common
funny.
for it to have an angle, you know? Anyways. Mr. Harrison
God.
feels to me like his entire character, from the moment that he's introduced, he has no dignity to the viewer, right? But the way he carries himself always reminds me so much of so many people's dads that I've met, where it's like, he has done nothing to command any kind of respect, but he expects to be treated with some manner of reverence in every situation that he's in. And I love the way that nobody in this movie seems to actually respect him at all, but they mostly, while he's around, they just sort of go along with it to be polite to him. But like, for us, the viewer, we know that he's pathetic from the beginning, because when we get introduced to him, the first thing we see is a shot of him standing and waiting and then getting hit in the face with a snowball that knocks his glasses off of his face. And just a real quick Christmas Story reference here. It's shot in exactly the same way as that scene where Ralphie in A Christmas Story gets his glasses knocked off by a snowball. It's the same angle of impact and everything. Also, all the snow and such in this movie is filmed in the same like dumpy Midwestern way that all of A Christmas Story is filmed. Bob Clark's got some feelings about Christmas, and he is so right for having them.
Yeah, I love his feelings on Christmas really do come down to, it could be kind of nice, I guess.
It could. It sucks
If it
sometimes.
weren't for
though,
everything
doesn't it?
else.
Well, because like we also get that one scene. I might as well just start talking about parallels to A Christmas Story here. We get that scene where Mrs. Mack is gifted that nightgown by the girls of the house, and they.
Oh my God, that was
love
so
this
good.
Scene where we see this look on her face where she's like, God, really? And then she turns around and is like, oh my God, and it's just like that scene in A Christmas Story where Ralphie has to wear the rabbit suit, of course, right? Because then they make her put it on, and she's like, what? No, and she doesn't want to, and she makes a joke about needing it as much as she needs a chastity belt.
That was so funny. The fact that she is openly to their face, but like, I hate this, you guys. Wouldn't
And
it be
they're all
crazy
like,
if I
"Ha,
just
Mrs.
fucking
Mack,
hated
you're
it?
Such a wild card.
And then she goes to the bathroom and to herself is like, I hate this
I love.
thing.
She's like, I wouldn't even get my kidneys taken out in this.
Yeah. And it kind of seems like they knew that buying it. I think they bought her that particular nightgown because she would hate it, and that's why they make her wear it and everything. Because, like, I get the impression that's the relationship they have with her, is that they're all just antagonistic to each other.
Incredibly sorority pilled.
I expect.
Like, not in a mean way. I think it's like a very cute sibling-y thing to do, to be mean to each other all the
Oh,
time.
sure. Not the way Barb does it to the other girls, though. It seems like she is...
No, not Barb.
Everyone agrees Barb is too mean.
Yep.
Other parallels to A Christmas Story, though, because I was looking at this thinking, like, what else is there? We've got a bad, unenthusiastic Santa. Ho 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 shit, he says, because he just doesn't want to
God,
be there.
I
and
love
he's being robbed
ho,
of a
ho,
weekend
ho
with his
shit.
girlfriend.
I love when he just, like, I didn't think the kids were in the room when he pulled that stunt. And then I
There's
saw
a
them in the
kid in
background. And
his
I'm like,
lap
oh,
when
they're
he
over
says
there.
that.
And then he says fuck while the kid's in his lap. And she's like, he's a naughty Santa, isn't he? And she's
Yeah.
like, mm-hmm.
Also, just looking for I was honestly just looking for similarities in the way that they're shot, right? Because I'm thinking A Christmas Story couldn't possibly be shot in such a similar style to this relatively hardcore kind of slasher, right? But then,
Mm-hmm.
god damn it, the one scene where Billy is rocking the corpse in the rocking chair in the attic, the way that it is shot, the way that you see her face covered with the plastic coming closer to the camera and back and closer and back, and I looked at it and I thought, if I just switched the music in this scene and had some echoey audio of someone saying, "You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Ho, ho, ho." That shit fits perfectly,
no.
doesn't it?
It does.
It's just a matter of whether he's trying to play it for laughs or not.
Not wrong.
I feel like having this in my head now might retroactively be messing up A Christmas Story for me, but I don't think it is. I don't think it'll be a problem.
No, I love Christmas Story too much for anything to mess
It's a
it
good
up.
fucking movie.
I watched Christmas Story for the first time like a year ago.
Really?
I think last year.
Oh my god.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Maybe I saw it like when I was really
Sure.
little and I didn't remember
Not a
it
big
very
part of
well.
your childhood, though, the way it was mine and Noah's. Did you like it?
Yeah.
Christmas
There
Eve,
are-
we watched 24 hours of A Christmas Story.
Every year.
There are some problematic
Oh,
parts.
sure.
Oh, yes.
But it was fine. It's not my favorite Christmas
Okay.
movie.
I
I get that. I
would
get it.
definitely be surprised if there's a few people who I think it might be their favorite Christmas movie, and as kindly as I can say this, if I were to find that information out, I'd be like, yeah, that adds up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably one of those you had to grow up with it kind of things, because I feel like it's a movie that captures the experience of childhood in a way that most movies don't.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
Despite it being set in the
Well,
1950s, which is not when my childhood was, but like it gets it.
Yeah. I was talking. So my friend Sam is the one that really was encouraging me to watch it because he found out I had never watched it. And he was like, oh my gosh, I love A Christmas Story. And he was really hyping it up for me. I was like, okay, fine, I'll watch it. And I watched it. And afterwards, he was like, what did you think? Did you love it? And I was like, the end part at the Chinese restaurant was really racist.
Yeah, it's not good.
He was like, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
And I was
It
like,
happens so late in the movie, I almost always forget that it's there too.
Yeah.
Up until you find
It's just
someone who
right
thinks
out
that's
of
the
nowhere.
funniest part of the movie, and I'm like, oh, come on, man.
Ugh.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
Anyway,
My favorite
Black
Christmas
Christmas.
movie is Klaus, though.
I've never seen
Don't know
Klaus.
that
I've
one.
heard it was very
Klaus
good.
is so good.
It's so good. I love it a lot.
Okay.
Highly
I'm a
recommend.
Jingle All
Klaus
the Way
is really
fan.
good. We gotta watch Jingle All the Way this year, I
'Cause I
think.
love Arnold
We have to.
Schwarzenegger, and I also love Phil Hartman, and I also love Sinbad. So like,
My favorite Christmas movie, and this is well documented to at least two of the people on this call, is The Year Without a Santa Claus.
oh, absolutely valid. Yeah,
Here.
yeah.
Without a Santa Claus.
It's never
I
Yeah,
don't
not
think
gonna
I've
be
ever
all
heard
bangers.
of that.
Oh my
That's
God,
the
you don't
Heat
know about
Miser
Heat
one.
Miser? You don't know about Snow Miser?
Oh, that's what that's
what that's from. That's from The
Yep.
Year Without
Yeah.
the Santa Claus.
I
yeah.
know those characters because of Nina. I
Oh.
don't know what movie it's from.
Oh,
And I've never
no.
seen the movie.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've seen the clip
yeah.
of their song.
Okay, well, you've seen the
It's-
best part of the movie then.
That's the best part. It's
I love those
it's really
guys.
short. It's one of those Rankin Bass specials. It's like 20 minutes or 30 minutes long
Is it
tops.
that short? Jesus.
It's always about 15 to 30 minutes longer than you remember it is when you watch it.
Yeah.
It farts around a bit.
It's fine. I like it. very much because of nostalgia's
Oh,
sake.
sure.
And
Yeah.
also, I really love Heat and Cold Miser with my whole heart.
Absolutely.
And Heat Miser looks like your dad.
And Heat Miser looks like my
He
dad.
does a little.
And that's
He's Mr. Heat Blister.
He's Mr. Hot.
And I think they took Thousand Foot Crutch's cover. They did last year. I don't know if it's back. They took the Thousand Foot Crutch off Spotify. The cover of Heat Miser. I was really upset.
My band covered
I'm
that
gonna
version. It was
search
a
it
lot of
right
fun.
now.
Yeah, let's find it out. If it's back, I'm gonna be so happy.
Why would they take that down? It's Thousand Foot Crutch. It was probably their best song.
It literally, I think it was.
I can't think of another reason to listen to Thousand Foot Crutch on purpose. So
Yeah,
sorry,
it's not-
Thousand
it's-
Foot Crutch fans. Listen.
No,
to
it's
this.
still not on there. I am
Damn.
so angry about
Looks
this.
like I'm gonna.
Damn, all the
continue
1,000
never
Foot Crutch
listening to
fan in
1,000
our
Foot
audience is going to be
Crutch.
sad.
I can listen to the Noah's Band's cover of it on YouTube.
Damn,
I could probably listen to Thousand Foot Crutch's version of it on YouTube as well.
likely.
But yeah, that made me really mad because I showed that to my dad and he thought it slapped. Anyway, Merry Christmas, everyone. Do we
Wait,
have...
we're not going to
do
do
we have
2
a
episodes
happy
in a row with no
holidays?
notes.
Oh,
We
Noah's
didn't do
notes.
any notes for the Rob Zombie
You
episode.
didn't have
much
any
to
notes? You didn't send Jeff your notes on
No, we
Rob
were
Zombie?
sitting right next
No,
to each other. We
were-
just forgot
we
to do
were
it.
really just rambling for 3.5 hours about Rob Zombie movies. So like,
I gotta
most of
listen
the
to that
typical
Yeah, no,
structure
frankly,
was out. If you listen
Here's the
to it,
issue.
you'll
As
get
soon
it,
as we
but
stopped recording,
we kept talking for
we
another
had
hour. Like,
another, yeah, there was another, at least, we could have done a 5-hour episode on these 2 movies. Once we finished the actual recap of both and continual conversation, which took 3 hours,
yeah, after
we could have done another 2 hours talking about the importance of the movies in our mind.
yeah,
And
Okay.
like,
literally,
Rob as a
literally
filmmaker.
after I went home, I messaged Noah that I felt like we could record another podcast the same length on the same subject with minimal retread.
That's so funny. Okay, we're gonna talk about Noah's notes on
Let's
this.
talk
though.
about
I am
Noah's
gonna
notes
listen to that
on
episode
this.
eventually. Noah says,
Let's read the notes. No's notes. Let's read the notes. No's notes.
I'm Mr. Note Reader.
I read the notes.
"Oh,
Copyright
what a
strike.
return to form."
we haven't had a Noah's Notes song in probably 2.5 years.
Good God. Okay, Noah says, "You're a real gold-plated whore, mother. You know that." It's a wild line to drop while our girl is a background character to the kissing couple.
Okay, so that's something I loved. That line is dropped as we switch from her being our POV character to Jess saying goodbye to Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or
she
no,
just
no,
says
no,
that
it's-
as she
it's-
becomes a...
It's Claire saying goodbye to Chris, isn't it?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. It's Claire saying goodbye to Chris. As Claire says goodbye to Chris, yeah, what a line to drop as you become the background noise.
Well, and that's after Barb saying the first spoken line in the movie, and that line is, "Who left the goddamn front door open?"
Mm-hmm.
Barb was this close to inventing Panic at the Disco in 1974.
And we would have all been better off for it if it had been her and not Brendan Urie.
Brendan
Really?
Urie watching this movie, frantically taking notes.
Speaking of notes, Noah says,
I said movie. I just want to get out there and say, yeah, I know.
Turkey.
wait, where did you even say that?
Just now, out loud.
Oh, I see. Noah says, swearing Santa was funny, but then when I realized there were actively kids there climbing into his lap, it was hilarious. Yeah, the moment that a child was actually in frame, I was like, that's so funny.
Barb gets a kid drunk at that same event as well.
She does.
That's true.
They should not let those sorority people do that. Noah says, Noah has some notes that we've gone over already in regards to Jess and Peter's conversation. But I think he says it way more succinctly than I did. Noah says, asshole boyfriend with his you don't think of anybody but yourself when it's something that will change her life far more than it'll change his.
Yeah, that was the first
Noah
half hour of
says-
the podcast. So
Noah says, love Chris's big ass pimp coat. That is a way to put that. Chris has a giant Narnia fur coat. I would have called it a Narnia fur coat personally, but it is a big ass fucking fur coat.
A friend of mine in Cosmo School had an identical fur coat.
Oh my God.
And she called it her pimp coat.
That's fun.
Noah says, Barb is a disaster sitting and looking at her Playboy centerfold while Mr. Harrison is sitting there and judging super hard. Barb is trapped in comp het, and I think that's really obvious if you listen to her talking about her sex life.
You know what? Yeah. That's exactly what's
the way
going
that
on.
she talks about turtles and how long they're able to have sex versus zebras, while like having the Playboy centerfold open to this naked woman.
Yeah.
Barb, I am so sorry. You need to sleep with a woman.
Yeah, she also refers to Claire as a professional virgin, saying, I know one when I see one. Maybe there's a reason that she's being too mean to Claire, and maybe it's a different reason than not liking her. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, classic. Noah says,
Does he now?
it's really hard to find things that we haven't already talked about again.
You
Noah
ignored the really sweaty pianist line, which I was
He
kind of
is
surprised.
very
He is
sweaty.
sweating his ass off while he's playing that. And actually, can we talk just as a real quick thing about the audition scene? This is something that Ben mentioned on Dead and Lovely when they covered this, but it happened to me as well when I saw that scene. I thought it was just like a really avant-garde kind of piece. And there's moments where he's playing these like really dissonant harmonies, and I actually think it goes kind of hard.
Yeah, it feels intentional until you realize it's really not.
Yeah, you see the guys' faces as they're like, "Oh," and it's like, "Oh, right, he's bombing. That's what this is. He's fucking up. It's not supposed to sound like
I could
that."
tell.
Me, a Meshuggah
That he
fan
was-
listening to it, was just like, "Oh,
I was
yeah.
gonna say, I was like, there's definitely a like intentional dissonance to this. It's like so back when I was in swing club in college, we would watch these movies every year, and one of the ones we would watch was about a computer programmer whose girlfriend gets him to try swing dancing.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was called. It was like Control Alt Swing or some stupid shit like that. And the male main character is very clearly a good dancer because they need him to be a good dancer later on in the movie.
Oh.
But when he has to play a bad dancer, he can't.
Ah.
So the way that he fucks up is not the way that real people fuck, like that people who don't know how to dance fuck up.
Right.
It looks like someone trying to fuck this shit up. That's what this music sounded like to me.
Mm.
It's bad, but it's bad in a way that's
It
like
sounds
just
so
kind of
intentional, right? Like,
exactly. Noah says, Nash is 100% the most incompetent person on planet Earth. This movie hates cops so much. I love seeing the public opinion about cops pre 9/11. It's pure contempt.
mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Noah says, Peter looks like a guy named Peter who is a no talent pianist.
Oh God, it's true.
He does.
It's true. Yeah.
I'm not trying to be mean,
He's always
okay,
wearing his
but
turtleneck sweaters and his bangs and
Noah says, God, here we go. He descends. And then he says, Jeff's Giallo knife rating ass glass unicorn.
yeah. What of it?
What's the...
it hit the screen and I'm like, if this was a Dario Argento movie, that would have been in the knife ratings and people would have been mad.
The one way that this movie could be more Giallo-ish to make me like it more in that specific way is for it to have a stronger soundtrack. But I really don't think it needs a stronger soundtrack.
Yeah, Motorhead doesn't play once in this
Not
movie, and
once.
frankly, I'm disappointed.
No Iron
Noah
Maiden
says-
songs getting played all the way through twice.
I'm so upset about that. I want more Iron Maiden in my horror movies.
More Iron Maiden.
Noah says, the guy at the phone spot actually physically tracing the call. I loved those scenes. I love the
Yes.
scenes of
Oh my
this
God,
man
yeah.
running around trying
I guess
to
I'd
figure
never
this shit
thought
out.
about tracing calls before.
Right?
He was doing his fucking
Yeah,
darndest.
lots of times movies will tell you, oh, you need X amount of time in order to trace a call, but this one doesn't tell you a specific amount of time. It just shows you a guy tracing the fucking lines and actually
I loved
physically
that.
going and figuring it out. It's really good. Good
Yeah,
tension
now
scenes.
it makes sense why it takes time. You know, like modern stuff, it's like they only have it take time because they need to for plot reasons. That shit's automatic now.
Noah says, if Nash were smarter at all, he would have just said, we need you to talk to Officer so-and-so out front. Now, she would have gone out and immediately found a body, but at least she would have been out of the house. Noah says,
Yeah.
oh my God, I forgot they still haven't entered the attic yet. They just took 2 girls from the room and Peter, literally the most dogshit incompetent cops you've ever seen in your lives.
Yep.
Noah said, and I agree with this, and I think it's a great place to end. Gut punch of a fucking ending. Insane that they've remade this twice when it was already perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
Why did they remake this movie? Nothing about it needs remade or resaid. Even the like political themes are still really applicable.
Without any
So-
alteration, even. It's not as though you have to update the feminism of the movie. It still hits.
No.
It still lands.
It still hits, and even the stuff that maybe one day won't hit.
Sure. Hopefully.
Because I don't think any of this doesn't hit, I think is a really interesting look at how things were at the time. So why are we remaking this? Even the cinematography isn't so outdated that I would want to see it redone. All of the shots are so cool and interesting. All of the horror is so well done. So why are we remaking this?
Yeah.
Go remake something that actually sucks, like Hoodwinked.
Honestly, right? Hoodwinked is one of those movies where it's like, yeah, that's just a project where the writing was absolutely perfect and they clearly just didn't have a lot of money in it. Like,
It's
or that
hilarious.
They spent all their money in the
they
wrong
had
places.
so
Yeah,
much
'cause
money.
It's a fucking
They spent it all on the
star-studded
voice
cast.
actors.
Yeah, they spent $1 million on the cast and $1 on the animation.
It's so funny because there are so many times in my life, not to derail us a little
Yeah.
bit. There's so
I
many
did this. I'm
times
sorry. This is
that
my
I have
fault.
thought, oh, it looks like that because of the era.
No.
But no, it looked ugly as shit when it came
Mhm.
out too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Monsters Inc. was out way before
It looks
that.
as bad as fucking Veggie Tales. Like it
early
looks like
VeggieTales.
3-2-1 Penguins.
Like-
Okay. Anyway,
Anyways.
that's all for Noah's notes. Next week or next time, I keep
whoa,
doing
whoa,
this.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
Next
whoa,
time-
whoa, whoa, whoa. We just covered a slasher.
What?
And we all know what my favorite kill was, but
Oh
what about
shit!
the three
yeah,
of
the
you?
kills. I like the first one. I like
Hell
the,
yeah,
the bag,
yeah.
and I like getting to see
is.
her after.
No, mine's gotta be Barb because there is a scene where the unicorn comes up and the horn is covered in blood and it is distorted with some light shining through and the bubbly glass in front.
Uh-huh.
The baghead
good.
scenes are great,
Absolutely.
but they sit best as a set piece and not as much of a kill.
Yeah,
for me.
that's the thing. I like the
I
shots
disagree, but
of
fair
the
enough.
corpse sitting there almost more than I like that kill scene itself.
I liked the POV part of the kill. I
Yeah.
liked the shaky cam and how it was tracking her
Majorly
head.
respect that opinion.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. But I also
My
really like the unicorn.
favorite was the swinging like
Mm,
hook on the sorority
Yeah.
mom, because that just made me feel like I could make a head canon where the killer is an adult version of the kid from Home Alone.
Oh
And
my
the
God.
Home Alone movies are a prequel to Black
Okay.
Christmas.
Nice try, Emma. We all know they're a prequel to Saw. Try to keep up.
We do all know this. But
I mean,
yeah,
I don't see any
that's
reason that the timeline wouldn't be Home Alone, Black Christmas,
Black
Saw,
Christmas, Saw.
You know,
Oh, so
Yeah.
true.
When I was a young man, I had gone astray. And then I got really annoyed and crashed my car and got a new lease on life.
that's why
is
his
the
story
story
keeps
of
changing.
Saw.
It's because he's been lying the whole time. He's like the Joker from the movie Joker.
I wish that were the truth. That would make Jigsaw a much more interesting character. And yet, not really. Okay.
Nina's when they hate my favorite villain.
I don't. And your favorite villain is Hoffman, so shut the fuck up.
So
I
true.
thought Hoffman was the hero.
Pointing at Jigsaw, you're not even the best villain in your own franchise.
Jigsaw's not even
It
the
goes-
best villain in
it
the
goes
Saw
Hoffman-
movies.
It goes Hoffman, redacted for spoilers, Jigsaw.
Hoffman is also should be redacted for
Nah.
spoilers. He's not the open
Nah.
villain until the fourth movie.
Nah, I've already shared ship edits of Hoff. I can't really.
Just because
take that
you
one
don't
back.
have the ability to hold your shit together doesn't mean everyone else should be
So
spoiled.
I found out. Okay, we gotta be done. But I did find out that the actor who plays Agent Strom, who in the ship edits I have shared in the server between Detective Hoffman and FBI Agent Strom.
Yeah.
He is FBI Agent Strom. He is like a really emotionally like important character in Gilmore Girls. Like, I did not know that. I saw a clip of
What?
Gilmore Girls, and my mom and little sister watched that show, so I watched the clip, and I was like, hold on a fucking second. That's Agent Strom.
That's really funny.
Anyway, next time we're watching Cabin in the Woods.
All right.
Let's go.
I'm
go.
excited. I think now is a good time to talk about it.
Now, this is a question for Emma. Have you seen it again since you saw a lot of the movies that are referenced in it?
When was the last time I watched it? It wasn't that long ago. It was maybe a year ago at the most.
Oh, so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious.
I haven't watched it in several years, so I'm excited to watch it now that I've seen multiple Evil Dead movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And even like when I first watched it, I knew a lot of the references already just through osmosis. And then the ones I didn't know, like I watched videos on like breaking down all the references in Cabin in the Woods.
It's fun because it is difficult. Even when you know the references, it's really difficult to pick them up if you don't
Yeah.
aren't watching frame by frame, because that's what some people do, and it's
well, that's
crazy.
because they put that level. Here's the thing: it's only crazy if the filmmakers hadn't put that level of detail in themselves,
that's
but
true.
they did. So if you go,
I mean,
frame
Left 4
by
Dead
frame,
Zombie is in there.
yeah, if you go frame by frame, you will see things and notice things that were intentional. So I don't think it's that crazy. I'm looking forward to talking about it. Other than that, I've been one of your hosts. My name is Nina. You can find me at Nina Wolverina on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Blue Sky, on Tumblr at Nina Wolverina. There's a 3 in there instead of the E because I locked myself out of my own Tumblr account. I do art. I write book. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Noah. I've been one of your hosts today. You can find me as Bubbadabad, Bubbadabad, Twitch, Blue Sky, Insta, sometimes other spots, and Tumblr. Sometimes I actually post on my Tumblr.
That's true. I've
Not
seen
as
it.
often as Nina does, but you can always
I'm
tell
on
when
there.
I log in.
All the goddamn time on Tumblr. If you follow me on Tumblr, you're getting raw and unfiltered Nina. That is where I put all my bullshit. Mia knows this. That's how we know each other, so.
Hi,
That-
Mia.
I'm Mia.
Hi, Mia.
Hey, when we were talking about shitty parents earlier and stuff, we weren't talking about you.
No,
No.
we weren't
Also,
talking about you
I'm
at all.
Jeff. I've been your host this week, and you can find me on Tumblr at What Is It You Pray For, and I will start posting again. I'm sure it's got to happen. I
This
have
is
to
a
eventually.
threat.
Yeah.
And I've been Emma, your host for this week. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Emma Panada. I'm also writing a TTRPG called All the Witches. You can find information about that at allthewitches_ on Twitter. I've been streaming a little bit lately to work on All the Witches and hang out with TTRPG friends. So if you follow me or hop in my chat sometimes, say hi. But thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Adios.